I just have, the public.
Yes, for the public and for council, I just have a short presentation that I can share here, hopefully. Sorry, Miss Dallas, I can't seem to see presentation. Apologies. Oh, right there. There we go. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so as I said, I just have a short presentation. I'll just run through a summary of the proposed bylaw amendments to the zoning bylaw and the official community plan bylaw. So the general intent of the amendments is to provide more clarity or greater clarity to various regulations, to correct inadvertent errors where they've been identified, and then in some cases to provide greater flexibility in terms of specific zoning regulations. And I'll just go through a summary of those. So for the zoning bylaw, so there's amendments proposed to provide greater flexibility for non-habitable attic space, specifically for homes with pitched roofs in that case. There's also an amendment proposed for power poles. I'll just make a note on this one at the end of the slide here, but the intent of that amendment was to allow for power poles that provide electrical service to sites to be located anywhere on a site. There's an amendment proposed for heat pumps to clarify that those are permitted to be located anywhere on a site. As well, there's an amendment proposed for accessory buildings and structures. So this could be things like garages, like a one-story garage. And so what we're proposing for that is to allow the siting of those one-story buildings to be located consistent with what is already permitted for one-story coach houses. And then for the M3 zone, that's where the Horseshoe Bay Ferry Terminal is located. We're proposing an amendment for basically for ferry terminal infrastructure to be exempt from the height requirements for that site specifically. And then for residential sites, we're also proposing an amendment to restrict or not permit shipping containers from being located on those. In the case of temporary construction activities, people do, use shipping containers for that type of activity. That would be still permitted, but this would be for more permanent installation of a shipping container, that it wouldn't be permitted on a residential site. And then, sorry, just back to the power poles one for a second. So council has received correspondence from the Board of Variance. And one thing just to correct from the staff report, in the staff report, it did say that in all cases where the board has considered power pole applications in the past, that they had approved all of those. That is, in some cases, that is actually not the case. They have denied specific applications for power pole installation, and they are providing feedback to council to basically delete that amendment. And so if council wished to take that direction, we have a motion ready for council that council, following the close of the public hearing, could consider in the regular council agenda for that. And then just continuing with the zoning bylaw amendments, There's amendments to clarify regulations related to short-term rental accommodation. This would support enforcement and regulation of short-term rental accommodation across the district. There's a minor amendment for garden walls to distinguish those from retaining walls that we do have specific regulations for. There's an amendment related to physicians' offices located in home-based businesses. This is really just clarifying in nature. It's not actually making any change whatsoever. There's an amendment proposed for bicycle parking for townhouses to align the amount of bicycle parking that you're required to provide for townhouses with ground-oriented dwelling units. And then for the CD 86 zone, that's the Caulfield zone that was created when the land use contract expired. There's an amendment that is aligned with the original intent of the zoning, basically where you have a site where multiple dwelling units are being proposed on a single site, that those would be restricted to be located within a single building. And as I said, that was really aligned with the original intent of creating that zone that came about after community consultation and the when the land use contract expired. And then finally, for the zoning bylaw, for the RS3 and CD10 zones, there's minor amendments to correct inadvertent errors. The official community plan amendments are really minor in nature. They're just intended to correct numbering errors related to the Whitby Estates and Clyde Avenue area development permit areas. So that covers a summary of the amendments, and following the close of the public hearing tonight, staff are recommending that council approve the bylaws, just noting that there is a modification that is needed to correct a numbering error that's included in the package for regular council tonight for council's consideration. So thank you, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. McGuire. Councillor Gambier.
Just a question about the amendment to heat pumps. We've been back and forth on this a number of times in my tenure, and so just wondering what the status is and how. I know we were only allowing them at the front or the back and not the sides, essentially because one individual had a problem with it 10 years ago. And so could you just explain the reasoning?
Yeah, through the mayor to Councillor Gambioli. So actually, in fact, heat pumps are already permitted to be located anywhere on a site. So I can't remember the exact date, but council did approve an amendment previously to really sort of pave the way for those to be located anywhere on a site. And this is just clarifying that existing regulation.
And just because we've had a lot of problems, with these being utilized in situations where it's not really great between neighbors. So what are the things that come into play when we do authorize that? Are neighbors consulted, or is there sort of a minimum side yard, or I'm not.
Through the mayor to Councillor Gambioli, so they can be located anywhere on a site at all. Okay. And that was actually, like I say already, an amendment that council made. They would be subject to the noise bylaw. So there are certain criteria that they would be required to meet, but there isn't any consultation when they are proposed to be installed. They can just be installed by a homeowner at any place on a site.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much. Any other members? Oh, thank you, Councillor Watt.
Yeah, thank you so much. The BC Ferries one, that you mentioned so that the infrastructure, so that we don't limit the height on their infrastructure. What does that entail exactly? Because in the past I've heard there's always rumors about the terminal and what's happening. And again, obviously that's beyond our control, but you hear of potential housing over the parking lot area, whatever. Like, describe how high and what this would involve.
So through the mayor to Councillor Watt. So this wouldn't be for instance, if BC Ferries at some point in future was doing a major ferry terminal redevelopment and included other uses that are separate from the main function of the terminal itself. This is really just for ferry terminal infrastructure that's needed to actually operate the terminal itself, that would provide the height exemption for. And in fact, from what we understand, if you can imagine the terminal as it exists today, much of the infrastructure is already beyond the height that is included in the M3 zone. And so this amendment is intended to be aligned with the intent of the original zoning that would have allowed for the terminal to be constructed.
Okay, thank you. And one other question, just regarding, more question comment regarding the heat pumps. So when I had mine installed a couple of years ago, the installer said to me at that time that it takes a lot longer in West Vancouver than a lot of other jurisdictions to get one. So I'm hoping this is one of this and maybe other things that may be beyond your department, but that will help facilitate and remove some of that red tape. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Any other members of council? If not, Councillor Cassidy, please.
So Ms. McGuire, could you please explain for the public's knowledge what you're prescribing by way of the second recommendation, please, when you're regarding the 1600 block South Marine and the 1400 block North Marine Drive?
Sorry, that's.
Oh, am I
I
on
think you're in the
something else?
wrong.
Oh, I'm
Sorry.
on something else.
Yeah,
My
no,
apologies.
We're in the
My
public hearing
apologies.
right now.
Yes,
so we'll-
sorry. My apologies.
Okay. I'll now turn to members of the public who are with us, either in person or online. Who would like to address council on this public hearing?
We have two names on the speakers list.
Thank you.
Jean and Rory Arms first.
Mr. or Ms. Arm? Did you want to address council on this public hearing? Oh, no, that's the council meeting. That'll start at 6 o'clock. This is the public hearing on minor amendments to the zoning bylaws. Sorry.
We also have another speaker, but it appears that they're also hoping to speak to another item regarding the water treatment or the wastewater treatment plant. Is that right? So that would be during the regular council meeting under public questions and comments. Okay, so we have no speakers.
Okay, I'm required to call for 3 times if any members of the public wish to address council on this public hearing. And we'll just make sure no one's on the list. I'll ask again, is there anyone else who wishes to address council on this public hearing? And a 3rd time, anyone who wishes to address council, could I have a motion to close the public hearing, please? Move, seconded, all in favor, contrary carried. Sorry, for those of you who have come out early, the normal council meeting starts at 6 o'clock. And thanks very much. We'll see you then. Okay, let's. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks very much for joining us. Please be seated. And I hope while you've been waiting for us, you've had a chance to read our acknowledgement to our friends and neighbors in the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam First Nations. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and I'd like a motion to approve the agenda. Councillor Gavioli, please.
Sorry, really? Was that me?
Yes, please. And you are, I believe, adding an item to the agenda
I
tonight.
am adding an item to the agenda. That's correct. So if I could please add to item number 9, the Ambleside local area plan, a discussion about that item.
Under an item. Fine. Okay, with that addition to the agenda, and you're moving that, Councillor Snyder, could I ask you to second it?
I will second that.
Thank you. I'll call a question. All in favor? Contrary carried. Thanks very much. Item number 3, please. 6507 Nelson Avenue.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Thank you.
I'll just introduce the item. So before you is an item respecting a remedial action requirement for 6507 Nelson Avenue. Matthew O'Connor, the manager of Bylaw and Licensing Services, is here to go over the report and answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Connor.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Through the Mayor, thank you for allowing us the time here. Given the kind of extensive history, staff at this time kind of are going to maintain our stance as what's noted in the report with no additional information. I did want to note the exemplary efforts of our staff in terms of helping to address this matter and get to this point. In particular, Assistant Chief Jeremy Calder, Supervisor Alicia Raffi, Hope Dallas, and the many other staff that were involved in this matter. So thank you for having us, and we appreciate their efforts. I will note that the registered owner Yvonne Mishke and her legal counsel are present with us today, and we would like to thank them for attending to address this matter. I will pass the microphone back to Hope to move this forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. So at this time, the property owner and their legal counsel are able to make their submissions to council. So we invite you to come up to the speaker.
Thank you. Perhaps just for the benefit of those who may be here tonight and not know what this is about. This is what we traditionally call a show cause hearing. This is a home that has been determined to be a problem, and there is an opportunity for the owner and the owner's representative, this gentleman, I assume, to make an appeal to council. And sir, I'm sorry, could I get your name again?
Yes, and I'm sorry, is it your worship or whatever?
Just your mayor's, whatever. I don't,
Okay.
Mark.
Okay. Shank, SCHENK.
Mr. Shank?
Yes,
Thank you, Mr. Shank. Thank you for being here this evening.
yes, thank you.
Please be seated and
So, thanks for giving Ms. Mishke the time to speak to this. You know, I've become involved fairly recently in this. I see from the report that there's an extensive history. And I understand that that's obviously an issue for the municipality. I mean, there's no question, and I don't propose to come to council and tell you that you don't know what you're talking about and that this is not an issue. It obviously is, and it's the kind of thing that's squarely within the ambit of councils and the municipality's abilities under the statute, the community charter, and the bylaws and whatnot to do something about. And so,
Mr. Shank, I think I'm just going to get you to move over just in
Sure.
front of the microphone so that those who might not have perfect
Sure.
hearing can hear you a little better.
Usually everyone tells me I'm too loud, so so I was just we're not here to argue that something shouldn't be done. That's not where we're coming from. obviously something needs to be done. What we're asking for is a little bit more time before you issue the order that staff has requested, to allow some of those things that could be done to avert the issuing of that order to be done. So, you know, Ms. Mishke, she's 70. She's a single female. I mean, that is it's its own population segment. Just from that standpoint alone, she might need a little bit of extra time. And I'm not saying that she hasn't been given time. Obviously she has, but a little bit more. I've worked quite closely with her over the last week and a half or two now to try and steer this in the right direction. And I'm seeing some signs that we can do that. In as much as she can apply her own energy and effort. And I caveat that by saying that's the effort of a 70-year-old single woman. She's been working diligently and she's made some progress, at least in terms of clearing the property. And I want to break the problem down into a couple of segments. There's the exterior property issue. There's the interior of the house. And then in terms of material deposit in the house. And then there's a third category, which is the structural integrity of the house. And the way I had hoped the problem would be approached, and I see that the city has done, or the municipality has done this in the past, that's to deal with the exterior of the property first, to clean it up so that people can access it, to inspect the property properly, and to make an assessment of what the house needs to be done to it, to bring it up to a standard that the municipality would find acceptable. And then secondly, in keeping with that, the interior of the house has to be decluttered, obviously, for a whole bunch of reasons, including that Ms. Mishke can live in there properly and not other places where she's currently living. And so, and also those two things have to be done so that we can get in a professional to assess what needs to be done to the house. And I'm not saying that that professional is going to say, I mean, I have an idea of what I'd like them to say, but I don't know that they're going to say that the house is salvageable. I mean, I've seen a number of these situations in my past experiences. I used to work for the city of Calgary, so I have some experience in dealing with these situations. This is not the worst one I've seen, but it's not a good one. I agree that that's the case. So we'd like to get someone in to address some of the issues that staff has raised and that the Rockport report has raised in terms of the structural integrity of the house. And I just want to remind everyone that, I mean, the title that we have suggests, I think the first title is about 1929 or 27, something like that. And the house was, I think, there before that title. So in terms of imminently sliding down the hill, I'm going to respectfully suggest that that probably isn't going to happen in the next month or so. I mean, I know the fire chief has spoken to fire loads. I mean, obviously that's an issue, but that's something that we hope to address shortly. And then structurally, like I said, I don't know that another professional is going to say that the house is sound, but I do expect them to say that there are things that can be done to bring it within a reasonable degree of what it is that the municipality would like to see happen in terms of the integrity of the house and the wiring system and that kind of thing. So we were hoping and asking council to at least delay this decision for well, a 2 to 3 week period so that we can clear off something that allows access to.
Well, Mr. Shank, may I ask a question? How long, in your opinion, have you been out to
I
see the
have.
property? How
I have.
long would it take to clean up the property on the exterior so that people could actually safely go and look?
Well, in my opinion, I think that if you had two 26-foot U-Haul vans, you could get it to the point where, well, 1.5 to 2 of those, you could get at the point where someone could look at the exterior. And like a 1-800 junk or whoever they are could come in and do it. And that's something that I'm strongly urging Ms. Mischke to undertake, and I believe that I can get her to do that.
Of course, it would have helped if that had been done prior to tonight's hearing.
And yes, and I appreciate your position in that regard, but she has been working on it on her own. So things like the porches that were problematically loaded with materials, the lower porch has been almost cleared to allow access to the front door. Now I can tell you that Ms. Mischke has rented a storage locker, I think on Main Street, Maple Leaf, something like that. We did have a building inspector come in on Saturday. They saw the occupancy sign or the do not occupy sign on the front of the property and indicated, for 2 reasons, that there were too many materials to allow proper inspection, but also the occupancy sign was an issue for their insurance, so they would not enter the property. So that's something else. If we could go forward, that I would ask to work with the city to see how we can deal with that occupancy sign, the do not occupancy order, or do not, whatever the sign is that's that's stapled to the front.
Mr. O'Connor, do you know what the sign says that's on the front door?
Through the mayor, yes, it is a do not occupy order issued under our building bylaw due to the perceived, or not the perceived, pardon me, due to the observed hazards, safety concerns, and state of the parcel, both interior and exterior. The do not occupy only applies to the structure itself, and it was posted due to the safety concerns as noted in the report. As the district and staff believe it is unsafe for occupancy at this current time.
Occupancy and inspection are a bit different, though.
It's just that, you know, the inspector came and said that sign is an issue, so I'm not going to look at the property. That was one of the reasons. So, yeah, and I myself was wondering a little bit about that, but I anticipate that we may have that issue arise again. But in any event, Ms. Mischke did make an effort to get someone in to look at the property other than me and herself and the neighbor and well, at least a building inspector, not an engineer, but the next step would be an engineer. There has been discussion with an engineer to retain them to come to the property. Apparently they're on vacation until April 1st. And when they come back and there's enough space cleared, they would look at the property and make a recommendation. And like I said, I don't know if that recommendation would be in keeping with Rockport or would be in the alternative to say that it's salvageable. I mean, it's been there for almost 100 years now on title. I mean, I think it'll be there for a little while longer if someone looked after it properly. Just to that note, Ms. Mischke did put a new roof on the property, I believe 2 years ago, a metal roof. And so any issues of water ingress from the ceiling and above had been dealt with quite a while ago. So as far as we understand, there's no water coming in above. When I've looked at the property, I think it's sitting on a granite plug. So it's not on soil. There is no traditional in soil underground drainage system. I have a feeling that the house is up on piers and that water runs underneath it, not through the floors, but under a crawl space, which would have probably been quite typical of, you know, design and construction of that era and time. And then I also, I mean, I do appreciate that this has been an issue that, according to the report, that the municipality has been dealing with for some time. I think on its face, without a diagnosis, it's a case of hoarding. and I don't, I say that in the most respectful way that I can of Ms. Mischke. There is a psychological component to that. It's a recognized disability. And I'm hoping that council and the municipality, and I'm not saying that the municipality hasn't viewed it in that, from that light. If they haven't, I hope they do. And if they have, I hope they continue to view it in that light. And in terms of any of those types of disability or mental health components, in addition to being a single 70-year-old female, that whatever accommodation the city thinks that they've offered, the city doesn't view it as having come to the point of undue hardship yet, and then there's still some room for that. So as a plan moving forward, what I would hope that I could counsel Ms. Mischke towards, and I hope that this would meet what the municipal council would see fit, is that, you know, within the next very short time frame, within 2 weeks, that exterior property has to be cleaned up. It has to be cleaned up. And it isn't just a matter of moving one object from here to 10 feet over. It's got to come off the property and not on city or municipality property, the driveway or whatever it is next door. It's got to be removed. And then following that, within a 2-week time frame after that, or even at the same time, the interior of the property has to be cleaned out, at least to salvageable, usable items, like normal items of furniture, and then at the same time, and as soon as possible, someone gets in there to look at the issue of the structural integrity of the property. And I'm hoping that we could have like a month or so to complete those tasks without the and whatever. I don't see myself, I can't say, but I would expect my retainer would continue through that process, and that I would be there to assist Ms. Mischke and the municipal count and the municipality to see that some of those goalposts and road marks are met. And I think it would be it. If they aren't met, then city council can always reconvene and move forward in the order of a demolition. So, I mean,
So if I'm hearing your request,
Yeah.
and it's maybe a little ironic that at the same time we're hearing the fire alarms next door, because I can tell you that is, obviously there's no one that sits at this table that wishes we were in this situation. It's very difficult.
I hear you, and I appreciate that you hear what I'm saying. I understand that there's a fire load. I understand the dry season's coming. I understand it's Horseshoe Bay. I understand that it's tinder dry trees in what is it, 2.5 months.
We had a very similar situation right next to Thunderbird Marina about 3 years ago.
Got it.
And the flames were 60 feet high.
Got it. Got it.
And thanks for only because we have an amazing fire department with great people, that they were able to get it quickly under control, and nobody was hurt.
No,
This is up to council, but what I'm hearing your request is that the owner be given 30 days to clean up the property, and then a further 30 days to have an engineer's report done. If that engineer's report does not say the home could be salvaged, would it be then reasonable to have the order that the home must come down?
I think that I don't know that there would be any other course that the municipality could take at that point in time. I'm not saying that I would have instructions not to deal with it otherwise, but I think that as a course of action, I don't see what other direction there would be under the statute.
Okay, I'm going to ask members of council. Councillor Watt.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Just,
No, no, please.
I just wanted to add that the electricity has been disconnected and I believe gas has been disconnected. So I appreciate the issue of fire load. But in terms of the electricity and the gas, that's not an issue right now. So,
Thank you. Counselor Watt?
Yeah, thank you so much. This is probably the most difficult thing that I've had come through here of a personal and sensitive nature. Full disclosure, I live very close to the property. And for upward to 17 years, probably, I've been watching it. And it has been one of the most heartbreaking things to see. And while I feel incredible and immense compassion for Ms. Miskey, I feel for the greater community as well, because I myself, when I remember the smoke when Tyee Point burned, the 2 fires that we had at the home up the hill, and all of this is within the past 3 years. And this situation has been going on for maybe not 2 decades, but well over 1 decade. And it is incredibly difficult to say this, but I don't know how we can expect a different outcome when, you know, our fire department, our bylaw department, and many who have gone before them, before tonight and before this past couple of years, have been working at trying to bring this property into compliance. And I walk my dog past it every single day, and it's tilting. So even, and I'm not an engineer, I'm not an architect, I'm none of those things. But as a citizen who lives in the community and walks by hundreds of homes, I see a home that is listing that has been in terrible disrepair with a lot of clutter, and there is real fear for the community. And I worry that if we allow this to continue, we're setting a terrible example for other parts of the municipality. And those are, you know, I'm obviously sharing my personal views, but my views as a counselor who respect the work that our staff have done thus far. And I am incredibly sorry to be sitting here today having this come before us. It's heartbreaking.
and I appreciate concerns that you expressed. Fire chief and so on. I'm gonna respectfully request and plead at the same time that I think, as the mayor pointed out, we could do this in 2 time blocks, cleaning up, and then the second time block, looking at remedying, as you put it, the listing or structural integrity. In 30 days, it's still the rainy season. I think that I'm going to respectfully submit, as much as I can, that would not sort of take us beyond an undue hardship threshold.
Yeah.
If we view it in the lens of you know, a hoarding you know, a disability.
I just want to add to that, though.
Yeah.
There's also been a psychological impact on the greater community, on those who live within many blocks. So while I respect and feel terribly, as somebody who's lived there, it has been incredibly painful for, I get asked about it weekly, in summer daily. Can't walk down the street without people voicing concern. So I'll stop there, but I just want you to know that I feel incredible compassion for this, but I also feel that for the greater community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Support for Ms. Mischke to hear that. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Cassidy, please.
So I'd just like to say that I echo Councillor Watt's views. And also I feel that I recognize the issue. They recognize how the issue has come to be and how long the issue has been in place. It's not just a few years, it's been decades. And so I feel very strongly and very obviously that we would be doing the homeowner a disservice, a financial disservice for starters, because there is no value anymore in that home. The value is in the land. So to ask for building inspectors and building engineers, and I'm sure they'll happily come because they all get paid a good dollar to do so. But at the end of the day, they're going to tell you that building is not salvageable. The building, as you earlier addressed in your commentaries, even if it had been in the best of care, it's over 100 years old, 120 odd years old, if I do the math. So we're not doing anybody any favors. Further to Councillor Watt's point, we have to think of the neighborhood. We have to think of the years that have gone by and the opportunities to address a situation which have never been addressed. And now we're where we are, okay? And we are endeavoring to be sensitive on the subject. But I completely feel that we're kidding ourselves. The house is a tear down. And I do not wish the homeowner to spend any more money on engineers and inspectors and new roofs and new walls. It isn't worth it. The value is in the land, and there will be a significant profit paid when the house comes down, or, pardon me, or received.
I appreciate your commentary in that regard. And just to be clear, I think that the report speaks of a 2013 issue. I'm not sure that it's decades, but and having said that, I do appreciate your comment about the value of the house, but that would be intrinsic to the owner's view as well. You know, I'm hoping that's something that we can let a private property owner decide how they would like to spend their money on their
I don't
property.
mean to interrupt you, but unfortunately I'm going to. We're paid to represent the entire community, not just the interests of one. And
I don't dispute that.
no, but I have been on this council this term 3 years, and I know people up and down Nelson, young couples who've saved up their money and bought into the street, who live just a couple of doors up. And every summer, they fear that this property is going to go up in flames, propane tanks hanging out there, you name it. And through the years that I've lived in West Vancouver, which have been since I was a child, this property has been an issue. And it has been an issue which the community has addressed with many levels of municipal services.
Councillor Gambioli, please.
Well, I was considering suggesting a motion
Please.
to defer this, well, I don't know if I want to call it a deferral, but to give the owner 4 weeks from today to clean up the exterior and interior of the property, and to have, I don't know if I even want to suggest staff come back, go back to inspect. But the issue you mentioned earlier was an extension for several weeks and then hiring a structural engineer.
Well, if there is, the staff have made a recommended motion, and Mr. Shank has made an appeal. It would be possible to add to this motion that the owner be given 30 days to bring forward an engineer's report that suggests the building could be salvaged. It's up to them how they clean up the property. And if in that 30 days, they don't, then the balance of this resolution. So you've bought an extra 30 days to clean up and get someone in. I mean, I think that's not an unreasonable thing to do. But I don't think it needs to come back before council with, unless there's some real evidence that the building is salvageable. As Councillor Cassidy has said, it's just wasting the owner's money. I'm going to go to Councillor Cassidy first. Back to you.
So I feel that all we're doing is punting the decision down the line for fear of, I don't know, offending the owner. But the fact of the matter is, and it has been addressed, so I'm not saying anything out of turn, there's a hoarding issue. And a hoarding issue is an issue of mental health. So we empty this house out and we clean it all up and everything else. There is still the issue of hoarding, and hoarding will come back. It's not solvable just because you clean up the property. And the owner doesn't even live in the house. She's living somewhere else and hasn't lived there for quite a time. And before she was not living in the house, she was living in her car. So what are we doing to this individual but giving false hopes that we are going to change our mind? It's not fair.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson, please.
Just as a refresher, because I know this hasn't come easily to council, would Mr. O'Connor please bring us up to speed on how we've gotten to this point in the last 6 months, what we've gone through to be here now?
Through the mayor, thank you, Councillor Thompson, for the question. I started with the district in 2021. This file came onto my plate in 2022. We did acknowledge the issues that Mr. Shank identified pertaining to mental health, and our whole approach throughout this time dating back to 2013 has come from a compassionate, collaborative stance. And in terms of enforcement on the property, there has been very minimal enforcement related to the property and to municipal tickets. In early 2025, January 2025, district staff, myself included, had reached out to Miss Mishke to schedule an inspection collaboratively alongside her in relation to the property and the state of the property, both interior and exterior. Unfortunately, there were challenges in scheduling that, and there was some resistance. And given the plentiful efforts that staff have made to connect with Miss Mishke, to enter into tiered agreements, to do walkarounds of her property, to inspect accordingly, to communicate accordingly. Unfortunately, during that January 2025 conversation and email thread, it was clear that at that point in time, we did not have the collaboration of Miss Mishke, and the awareness of the severity of the situation did not seem to be falling into place for Miss Mishke. Given that, the district moved forward in pursuing an administrative entry warrant and to perform our inspection independent of the owner involvement in September of 2025. Obviously, there were outwardly observable issues, and there have been for many years, but the interior of the property was in a very concerning state. The district did bring in a third-party structural engineer with the cost borne by the district to perform this work, to analyze, to ensure that our submissions, our review was done with professional input, with district input, and with a situation that's gone on pertaining to this property for 13 years. And to try to quantify that and qualify that ourselves, because we continue to receive complaints as a department. The issues have progressively gotten worse over time, and the staff would like to note that at times Ms. Mishke has performed some small tasks to clean up the property. However, the state of the property itself and these small tasks, they don't hold. And then it snowballs into something worse. And then we come back and we get a little work done. And then unfortunately, it's nothing that's continuous from the time that staff have kind of worked with Ms. Mishke. There's been efforts, and we've worked to acknowledge that with her. However, they don't stick and they don't continue, and it's not a permanent process. It's something to address an immediate concern or an immediate issue. And so staff obviously have been working on this for quite some time and have made more than relevant efforts and extra efforts to ensure that Ms. Mishke feels supported. There's communication there. There's walkarounds of the property. And unfortunately, I would say that staff do have concerns with the state of the property potentially being remediated to a satisfactory state or to a certain state where because of this recommendation and motion, but that not kind of sticking and that not the severity of the things not sticking with the registered owner, Ms. Mishke. So that's how we got to this point. Councillor Thompson, sorry for
Yeah.
the long-winded.
No, that was
answer.
exactly what I was wanting to be refreshed upon. And I have no doubt that you've done all you can to make sure we can help sustain the home and the person who owns it. With that, can Mr. Shank explain how he thinks 4 weeks is going, he's going to see some progress that he can maintain over 4 weeks and assure council that with an extension, there's some hope?
Well, I mean, I'd like to be as authentically straightforward with the council as I can be, and I obviously cannot promise you a result. I haven't promised anyone a result in 25 years of practicing, and I don't propose to do now. But having said that, I think that it's become very clear to Ms. Mishke that there is an end point here. An end point sooner than later, and the end point is that you know, that there's going to be there's a serious issue with the viability regulatory, you know, the regulations. There's an end point in the regulatory process, and I think we're coming very close to that. And so I think that has provided a certain amount of impetus to bringing the property into compliance with what it is that staff is recommending.
Okay, and just one final question. So again, if you're granted these 4 weeks, what would be required of staff moving forward to ensure they've met this point? You spoke about getting a third-party inspector in. What further involvement beyond the fire services and the bylaw services, et cetera, that have been very involved for the last few years? What do you expect them to bring a closure to this?
Through the mayor to Councillor Thompson, I do want to reiterate that we are empowered by the bylaws, and if there are bylaw contraventions, those need to be addressed. Obviously, we weigh files and cases based on the imminent safety issues, the severity, and there would be a significant amount of work required to bring the property into a sufficient state to meet the bylaw requirements. I'm not kind of able to speak explicitly on those things. However, things such as electrical permits, building permits, demolition permits, likely due to the state of the parcel currently, you would likely need a hazmat survey, and you would likely need to qualify the work, pay for those permits, do a lot of work before you can even get in to address the issues with the structure itself. And given the kind of the financial burden, as Councillor Cassidy noted, that's a significant amount of effort and a significant amount of work required to even get to the point where it's sufficient to meet the bylaw in a satisfactory state. That's not something I can comment on further than that because it's a very fluid process. However, the concern would be that's a lot of work. And Mr. Schenk did note that his retainer won't last forever. And if someone's not there to consistently monitor, direct, and inform Ms. Mishke of exactly what needs to be done, I fear that it may fall by the wayside as we've seen. But regardless, any kind of work related to the property, any permits issued, involves staff time, involves staff follow-up and review, and that's not even related to the perceived significant financial cost to bring it into a sufficient state.
Thank you.
Can I just ask Mr. O'Connor on your recommended motion number 4, There is a provision here that the owner may request council reconsider the terms of this resolution by providing the district written notice within 14 days. Would there be any harm in this motion gives 30 days to do certain things if that provision was also 30 days?
I can speak to that if you'd like.
Yes, please.
Mayor Sager, the legislation says 14 days or a time longer prescribed by council. So council can choose.
I'm just thinking that I think Mr. Shank fully understands that something needs to be done. Most of this gives the owner 30 days to do things. If the owner is serious about trying to do something, do it in 30 days and you can still apply to come back to council if that was 30 days instead of 14. But you wouldn't, there'd be no point in coming back unless there was a real effort to have this situation rectified. Councillor Watt?
Sorry, I'm gonna be a little more blunt. The property, I believe the building assessment is at about $9,000 on the property. So we're not dealing with a structure. And I think anybody who's been in the building or attempted to get in would realize the vast amount of work that would have to be done. But, you know, I look at this and it is a traumatizing situation for everybody. Neighbors, and I worry about our staff. I'm being perfectly blunt. I've seen the photos from inside the building and people having to continue to go in while we kick this can farther and farther down the road at cost to the municipality, at cost to staff time. We've got bylaw officers that are needed in so many other areas, and we keep focusing on this file. And I'm just going to leave it there. I've said my piece.
All right. Mr. Shank, is there anything else you'd like to say? And then it will be up to council to make a decision here.
Well, I think that I'm sort of submit as respectfully as I can. 30 days, if I think if the property isn't cleared up by then, I mean,
It's not going to get clear.
well, I mean, and it's been an issue for a long period of time. Another 30 days to take a more concerted approach to dealing this with some guidance, I think the downside, there's almost no downside for the municipality. I would put, or it's a minimal downside. The loss to Ms. Mischke is a disproportionately high loss. So I asked council to keep that in mind. So I don't think there's any more I could say. I hope
Shank, thanks very much.
Yeah.
Thank you for assisting in this difficult matter. Councillor Cassidy, please.
Again, if we gave the homeowner 1 month, if we gave the homeowner 6 months, it is not going to change the nature of the problem. It would be setting the individual up. I mean, the outside alone, you addressed the number of trailers that it would take just to clean up the outside. The inside is floor to ceiling. This house, as Councillor Watt has just stated, has been assessed at $9,000. I just recently got my deck repaired, and it's a very small deck, and it was $20,000. So we are going to be setting this individual up for unrealistic expectations and yet further heartache.
Thank you. Councillor Cassidy, I think Mr. Shank has made his appeal, and I think it is up to council now to decide what steps it wishes to take. There is a proposed motion. It's very lengthy. If you wish to make the motion, I would accept it as written. You might want to consider modifying clause 4 to 30 days instead of 14, but it is up to members of council. Councillor Watt?
There's somebody else move this at this point.
Councillor Cassidy?
I will move it, and I will move it as written.
Okay, is there a seconder? Moved and seconded. Is there discussion? I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Contrary? Motion, are you recording contrary? Okay, the motion is carried. Sorry, Mr. Shank. Thank you. We'll move to item number 4, please, the proposed historic grinder pump. And if Mr. Perry is present tonight, it's been a number of people that have been very helpful as we work through this historic problem. And there was a motion proposed by staff. And sorry, I just need the corporate officer back with me here. As a result of further discussion input, I'm making a proposed, thank you, if I could ask the corporate officer to put up my proposed amendments to the bylaws. And then I'm going to see if I can get somebody to move them as amended. Could we bring up the
Oh, sorry, you sure? Oh,
and I believe that these are sound agreements, and maybe I'll just ask Mr. Perry, you've read the amendments. Do you want to add anything before there's an opportunity to speak if you'd like to now. Mr. Perry, thanks for joining us this evening.
You're very welcome, Mr. Mayor and Council. It's going on 3 years ago that Council passed an invalid bylaw relative to grinder pumps, a bylaw that should not have been passed. And over this last 2.5 years, there's been a lot of discussion back and forth, a reasonable amount of acrimony, but where we finally arrived is the amendment, the bylaw amendment tonight, which I think we should all be extremely happy with. So I want to thank Mayor and Council very much for getting us to what I view and we should all view as a very positive conclusion. Now, there's one aspect of this that personally I'm pretty proud of, and that is the fact that I have had a fair amount of input, as have Don Davidson and others among us, into the amendment bylaw that you're going to vote on tonight. And I'm particularly proud of the fact that I don't believe there's any ambiguity in it. I think it's as clear as can be, and that's not necessarily the way it started out. But I want to thank our mayor, with the support of council, who allowed us to provide direct communication to staff with respect to crafting the amendment bylaw. So there's a few really key points in the bylaw that I believe we really helped wordsmith. We helped staff on this. And again, it's to the testimony of our mayor and council that this was able to happen. And I'm not sure whether we would have been able to get here without that direct communication. So I would be very surprised if there's any negative feedback to this. I think we should all be proud of where we've got to, given our experiences of this last, as I say, almost 3 years. So
thank you, Mr. Perry, and we are grateful to you and the other people who have helped us work through this historic problem. And it is nice to know that I think this is a very good resolution.
if you do get questions, I'm more than happy to field them if they're questions that should come from somebody with a grinder pump.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Snyder, please.
Yes, just before I make the recommendation, I'd also like to thank Mr. Perry just for the way that you've handled this and how you've collaboratively worked with staff and council and everybody else throughout the last 2.5 years. So you've put a lot of work and energy into it, and hopefully it pays off for everybody and the right decision and solution is reached. So that being said, I'd like to recommend that the proposed sewage and drainage regulation bylaw number 5263, 2023, amendment bylaw number 5441, 2026 be modified by following, be modified by adding the following definition to section 4.1 of the bylaw. Historic grinder pump service capacity means the current service level capacity provided for by the existing district historic grinder pump system, and deleting 7.9.4 F and replacing with the district determines that the demand exceeds the historic grinder pump service capacity, and that the proposed sewage and drainage regulation bylaw number 5263, 2023, amendment bylaw number 5441, 2026 be read for a first, second, and third time as modified.
Thank you. Is there a seconder, please? Thank you. Any discussion? Okay. I mean,
It's not discussion. I just wanted to note that the speaker the speaker said that we passed an invalid bylaw, and I just wanted to clarify that I don't think that's true.
well, we don't need to debate that, but
No, but I
there
just
was
don't
lots of, let's just put it this way, there was lots of legal opinions on something many years ago.
Well, there were lots of opinions.
There were
but I
lots
just-
of
I don't want, I
opinions.
don't want the public to be misled into thinking that we are passing invalid bylaws, because I don't believe it was invalid. It was just maybe not, wanted, and it was maybe not done in the best way, but I don't believe it was invalid.
It happens from time to time when you've got a lot of lawyers involved. Okay,
Call the question.
call the question. All those in favor? Contrary, carried. Oh.
And this one, I'm
thank
gonna,
you.
because I've done enough speaking on that last one, I'm gonna recommend as written.
Okay, fair enough. Is there a seconder, Councillor Cassidy? Thank you. Any discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Contrary, carried. Again, thanks very much, Mr. Perry, and to all those involved.
Mayor Sager, sorry to interrupt. There was just one more
Oh.
resolution at the beginning to receive for information.
Oh, Councillor Snyder, receive for information.
Yes, I will make
Move,
that motion.
seconded, Councillor Cassidy, question, all in favor, contrary, carried, thanks very much. Okay. We're now going to go to item number 5, small scale multi-housing legislation. I should just add before I call on staff to make a presentation, for those of you who have been following our discussions with the province over a number of mandates, we did receive a letter from the minister on Friday. We also had the minister attend our very successful opening of the new Kiwanis building on 22nd. And the minister's letter was of a very conciliatory tone. And so I feel that we have improved the community's position in the eyes of the minister. There was acknowledgement in her letter, which I think we'll put up online if you haven't seen it, of the work council has done in addressing housing needs, and it was quite positive in tone. So a change. Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. May I ask you to make a presentation, please?
Thank you, Worship, and good evening, members of the committee and members of council. So this item is in response to provincial legislation, namely Bill 25, regarding small-scale multi-unit housing, which I will abbreviate to SMU going forward. This is a significant item, so I think staff would be remiss in not providing a substantial presentation. Our intent in the first part is to make sure that there is a full understanding of the legislation and its implications for the district. In the second and third part, I'll walk through what staff would characterize as our working approach. And to be clear, though, that by that term, I mean this is not a bylaw in front of council, but it is incumbent on us to describe how a bylaw could be prepared. And I'll do that through 9 principles and then conclude with the next steps and staff's recommendation. So in terms of the legislation, the requirement for SMU first came into effect in the Local Government Act through Bill 44 back in 2023. In summary form, it meant that across the province, most residential lots were required to allow 3 to 6 units per parcel. with the unit number defined by the size of the lot and its proximity to frequent transit. Importantly for West Vancouver, at that time, the legislation did not apply to lots which already allowed a principal house, a basement suite, and a coach house. That is West Vancouver's predominant neighborhood zoning, and that's the reason why most of the lots on this map from that period of time are shown as white, and the colored lots show the 380 parcels that were impacted, and compliance with Bill 44 led to a theoretical increase of around 750 residential units. Going to the end of last year, the province amended the Local Government Act, again related to SMU, through Bill 25. Significantly, this expanded where SMU now applies, and now it does include residential lots that permit single-family basement suite and coach houses. There was the same legislative requirement to consider the province's recommended site standards with expanded ministerial powers to regulate those site standards. And when I refer to the provincial term site standards, think of that in the way we would typically think of zoning. So the components of a zoning bylaw: siting, size, form, density of development, and so on. The deadline for compliance is June 30th this year. So not a huge amount of time for a very significant file. Should compliance not be met, the legislation allows for the minister to issue 30 days notice. Should compliance not be met within that 30-day period, the legislation also allows the minister to issue an order to enact or amend a bylaw. And finally, the province has communicated that it intends to monitor in an ongoing fashion the uptake of SMU. So there's a quotation on the screen. I think in summary, layman's terms, what it's saying is that even in the event of compliance, if the province, deems that compliance has been done in a way that doesn't enable the viability of these forms of housing, then the province can impose its site standards. So begin with the map. This shows the new extent of the area within the district that would be required by June 30th to update its zoning to allow SMU. I'll briefly acknowledge the footnote at the bottom of the screen. There is a very small number of lots that are required to allow 3 units. Staff would characterize these as housekeeping minor amendments that we're very comfortable in how we go about them. So I won't address those in the PowerPoint, but what obviously is notable, certainly geographically, is the area shown in the yellow-orange color. This is 90% of the SMU impacted parcels where district zoning, so really our residential neighborhoods, if you like, would need to allow 4 units. And then shown in red, these are the lots that, because they are within 400 meters of a prescribed bus stop along Marine Drive, so roughly to 25th, where the district would have to allow 6 units per lot and not be able to require off-street parking. Collectively, this translates to an increase in zone. This would translate to an increase in zone capacity of over 12,000 residential units. You've heard me reference the province's site standards. They are provided as one of the attachments to the report. I'm often reminded as a planner that not everyone in the community reads bylaws in the way planners and architects perhaps do. So the intent here of these photos is just so that perhaps it makes it easy for folks to understand what these site standards could look like. So the images generally to the left of the screen are buildings that were built to the province's site standards, and those generally to the right of the screen, buildings that are, or at time of photograph, were under construction outside of West Vancouver, again to those provincial site standards. So we are required to consider these in our work towards compliance. Staff have also considered the way other municipalities have achieved compliance with SMU at the time of Bill 44. There's obviously a lot of numbers on this screen. I won't painfully walk everybody through them. I think the key point is if on the left of the screen are the province's recommended site standards. So FAR means density, so roughly 1.5 to 2.4. That's typically what we might think of as an apartment type density or a high density townhouse. Height of equal or greater than 11 meters, that's 3 to 4 stories, majority lot coverage. And then on the right of the screen, you can see, again, in summary form, some of the components of the zoning bylaw for West Vancouver zones that are impacted by Bill 25. And you'll notice there is, it is more restrictive, lower density, less height, less site coverage, and so on. But the real point here, again, without speaking to every column, if we look in blue, these are examples of local governments within the Lower Mainland who at time of Bill 44, and to the best of our knowledge, were deemed compliant with that legislation for SMU, where they did amend things like density, height, setbacks, coverage, and so on, without adopting wholesale the provincial guidelines. So I would describe these as a form of continuum, and folks can look at this as a reference slide and see the range of densities and heights and so on. So moving on to staff's working approach through the form of principles, overarching principles that could guide how we went about preparing compliant bylaws. First consideration is neighborliness and neighborhoods. From our experience, what we tend to find people notice in their neighborhoods is, and if they're changing, is how close is a property to their street. So is the street changing? We would call that the front yard setback. And also how close is a neighboring property being built to their property? So we would call that the side yard setback. And also the overall scale, which in West Vancouver's neighborhoods is 2-story plus basement. These components are actually identical across the impacted zones in West Vancouver today. So we would propose taking that neighborliness approach to maintain that. In contrast, what is different between the impacted zones, just from a zoning perspective, is how large a building a house can be. So you'll see the range of maximum building size from roughly 300 square meters to roughly 1,000, and also how large a lot is required to be. So the minimum lot area, again, just summarizing, roughly 500 square meters to over 1,600, and that determines how many lots there are in that neighborhood and their ability to subdivide. So, a central challenge here is taking province-wide legislation and not wanting to erase the differences between places. So we would, to avoid that, keep what actually distinguishes from a zoning perspective, the different characters of the neighborhoods that are impacted by not changing those distinct variables. Shown in blue, and this will be true for subsequent slides, what we do think could be changed, should council wish to comply with the legislation, is a modest increase in site coverage, 30 to 40% moving to 35 to 40%, and a modest increase in height from 7.6 to 8 meters, but within a 2-story and basement scale. A second principle relates to massing, and particularly the what I think is fair to say is a complicated existing system of calculations. That would be true irrespective of Bill 25. There is complexity which impacts homeowners' understanding of what they can build. Their architects, they retain how they design, and then obviously subsequently processing or discussions between design consultants and staff. An example would be highest building face. This is not a term you tend to see in most people's zoning bylaws. Without describing it in detail, it requires taking a 45-degree plane from certain portions of the elevation of a building face. We think the intent here could be met in a more simplified way by simply requiring that the topmost story of a house not be greater than 75% of the floors beneath it. So that would meet the same intent to control massing. Another example would be the way we calculate grade. The image on the left of the screen shows the current methodology, which requires every corner, every section wall around the perimeter of a building for the grade to be calculated. Its average to then be weighted based on the length of the section wall, and then from that, an overall average be calculated. We think moving towards something like a 4-point calculation would make this more straightforward. I'll recall this is a working approach, so 4-point calculation may not be the magic number. It could, for example, be a 6-point calculation, but we don't think it necessarily needs to be a 12 or plus, more than a dozen-point calculation, as in the current zoning regulations. A third principle would relate to respecting owners' rights in terms of what they can do and how they can use their property. This is also an example of how things could be simplified to really free up owners and their designers within their entitlement, which we would respect. By entitlement, I really mean floor area, so floor area ratio. Image on the left shows that at time of speaking, owners have an FAR within their zone, what they can build to, but then in terms of what's calculated, it becomes a system of fairly complex exclusions, so they can build the main and upper stories, but then they won't have the floor area counted if it's a basement, but only if it's below a certain grade, and that depends if it's habitable space, etc., versus crawl space. And then based on that calculation, if there's remaining floor area or if the suite is abutting or not, then they could have remaining floor area, or they could be eligible for a bonus for a coach house and so on. So it is fairly complicated. Image right, the proposal would be that we could move to what we're branding an all-inclusive FAR, where it's very clear to owners that they understand the floor area they can build, and then it's really up to them to choose how they would allocate it. So we would maintain a maximum building size that's in the existing zoning bylaws, but then allow owners to choose to allocate any remaining floor area as they wish, for example, a coach house, parking structure, etc. And we extend that freedom, if you like, in terms of their ability to choose whether to own or rent any extra units on the lot. The only restriction being secondary suites are required to be rental. Building on that theme of freeing up owners, maximizing flexibility. To be very clear, Bill 25 does not require people build 4 units. It requires that the zones allow that to be possible. So we wouldn't change the existing options shown on the image left. You could continue to build just a house or a house with a basement suite or a house with a coach house. But obviously to meet SMOO compliance, we would have to provide additional options, not only to achieve 4 units, but also we think there will be ways to allow other ways to have 2 units or 3 units. We've heard, for example, from the community through the OSP review that there is an interest in triplexes or in strata coach houses. And then the 5th principle relates to the number and the scale of buildings on a lot. Currently, our zones allow for 2 residential buildings on a lot, so a house and a coach house. We would maintain that with the exception of very large lots. You can see the image left of screen. There are lots in West Vancouver that could accommodate 3 residential buildings, only the large ones, whereas image right for standard or smaller size lots, we think there would be a risk of overcrowding, if you like, should we permit 3 units. So we would maintain the 2 residential building restriction. We'd also maintain the differentiation between height. So right now, for example, the house is allowed to be taller than the coach house. So we think that works well. The legibility of a neighborhood, people understand, the kind of primary versus the secondary forms of development. So we would maintain that with an 8-meter 2-story plus basement limit for the front building, lower at 6.4 for the rear building or buildings in the potential case of larger lots. Moving on to the principles, overarching principles for how compliance for the 6-unit area could be met. I think the first point, whether it's the perfect term or not, once we are faced with legislation that requires up to 6 units per lot, it is some form of missing middle. So really it's about guiding that. Without reiterating it, a lot of what I've described with respect to the 4-unit area, the same approach could be taken. So in terms of the kinds of housing forms, coverage, number and relationship of buildings on a lot, controls on massing, etc., that could be carried forward into the 6-unit area. There would need to be some adjustments as necessary or where staff think it would make sense. An example would be the all-inclusive FAR would need to be higher, so 0.8 FAR for these lots. That reflects existing development rights. A lot of the lots in question are currently duplex zoning. There would need to be modest adjustment to rear setbacks, but this area in question does have rear lanes, which does make that easier to manage. There needs to be a modest increase in site coverage should an owner wish to pursue 5 or 6 units. And there is the opportunity to require, if someone wanted to build the full 6-unit allowance, there is an opportunity to require that one of those units be affordable rental. So in summary, this would lead to a new zone. And then subsequently, should council comply by June 30th, staff would bring forward a new development permit area with new design guidelines. It would be necessary to rescind, for example, existing duplex guidelines. They'd be obsolete to the forms of development that would now would at that time be enabled, and we would prepare updated design guidelines so council and staff would have that additional design control tool. Within this new zone, staff would at this stage at a working approach recommend allowing a third story, but in a managed way. So only if there are 3 or more units being proposed. So image left shows really what you could do today in this area for the duplex lots. That wouldn't really change. So it would be a 2-story limit. Same FAR, only expressed as an all-inclusive FAR. If you look at the central image, the triplex, that's actually the same FAR. So it's the same volume, the square footage, but by allowing a third story, what you'll notice is there's a lot less site coverage. We think the benefit of this would not only be for things like environmental considerations or more landscaping, also to allow parking to be provided. So as I mentioned at the start, we cannot require parking in a 6-unit zone. I think realistically, people may choose to want to provide parking, and we certainly won't want any bylaws to be an impediment to that. So by allowing a third story, you're actually allowing better opportunities to program the site to enable that. And then should someone wish to build the full 6 units, image right, requiring one as affordable rental, and then maintaining some kind of sense of scale between the 3rd and 2nd story if there's 2 buildings. The 8th principle, and this builds upon the previous one, would be to facilitate townhousing. So as a form of housing we've heard people are interested in, but also to do so in a way that does enable parking, recognizing we can't legislatively require it. So an approach here would be to incentivize assembly, so allow greater density if 2 or more lots are assembled, and then not include in-floor area calculations, underground parking. So exclude those from FAR, so there's no disincentive. What this could enable, image left, would be, for example, up to 10 strata townhouse units. So there's some garden units and some above grade units in the illustration there with underground parking. Again, there's no requirement to build to the full allowance. People may choose to assemble lots and build less than 10 townhouses. But if they did assemble lots and wanted to build the full allowance, because it's 2 lots, that would be 12 units, but 2 of them would need to be affordable rental. And then the last principle with respect to the 6-unit area, this is really wrestling with the geographical impact of taking a 400-meter radius from a prescribed bus stop. The impacted lots are shown in red, and they don't respect the blocks. You can see they really just sawtooth around them, which we think is not really what you would recommend from a planning or design perspective in terms of the lack of integrity of people's experience of the block they may live in or may visit. So extend the boundary to the nearest north-south street so the blocks are intact, and then also extend it northwards to the nearest lane. The intent there would be to acknowledge that lanes are typically less sensitive than streets. People typically spend less time on lanes. So to ultimately, we'd be managing the transition between the 6-unit area and the 4-unit area. We think a lane would be more appropriate. The transitions would occur across a lane. They would necessarily always be downslope given the slope of the area in question. And it would also mean that the streets remain symmetrical, so that when you're walking or driving down the street, you would see the same kinds of forms of development, the same scales of development either side of a street, which generally supports neighborhood character. In summary, I think it's incumbent on staff to be clear about our intent that, I think our job faced with this new legislation is to enable council to consider compliance by the legislated deadline. To be very clear, direction, should it be provided tonight to proceed with bylaw preparation, it doesn't predetermine any future decisions council may make regarding bylaws that could be prepared. The approach I've summarized certainly intends to consider both the Local Government Act that we're responding to, but also our own zoning, what works well, what perhaps could be improved, the context of different neighborhoods, and our housing needs, things we've heard matters to the community, allowing triplexes, strata coach houses, townhouses. And so collectively, those 9 principles, should council provide direction, hopefully they will provide structure, which is certainly necessary. This is a very complicated expectation from the province. There's more than 10,000 lots impacted, so we would need structure to undertake this work, but also hopefully nuance in taking province-wide legislation and trying to shape it to an outcome that does respond to our context. So again, left in orange, the provincial guidelines, right in green are existing zoning. Summary of the working approach, you'll see things like a tiered density for FAR. So different levels of density based on, is it a single family house? Is it a multiplex? Is it a 6-unit area? Is it a 3-story townhouse and so on? Similar for height. So a differentiation between things like coach houses, principal buildings, and then potentially 3 stories in the 6-unit area. In terms of the process, we're obviously March 30th shown in orange. This item was discussed by the Planning Committee at its February 25th meeting. Meeting minutes and their resolution is attached to the report as Appendix E, and staff have endeavored to respond to the key aspects of their input. Should council provide direction to proceed this evening, I would describe what I've summarized really as a platform. There's lots of technical work to go ahead with. There would certainly be details to be refined, but generally within the spirit of the principles I described. Staff would update the website, to use social media to promote awareness about this legislation and how compliance is being worked towards or could be considered. But those decisions themselves would be for council to make across May and June at bylaw consideration time. So the recommendation tonight is that council receive this report for information and that staff be directed to prepare zoning bylaw amendments as outlined in the working approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Before we go to discussion, I'm going to call severance on the question, and I'll ask for a motion to receive the report for information at this time. Councillor Lambert, would you be prepared to do that?
Yes, Mayor Sager. I would recommend that the report titled Small Scale Multi-Unit Housing Legislation Bill 25 Compliance Direction to Proceed, dated March 11th, 2026, from the Senior Community Planner, be received for information.
Thank you. Councillor Watt, would you second that motion? Seconded. Any discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's just for information.
I had a bunch of questions for staff.
Yeah, no, we can still do that, but that's just to receive Mr. Hawkins' report. Councillor Gambioli?
Right, so going, and I think there might be people on the speaking list, but I'll just ask some questions first, because that was a long and detailed report. Thank you to staff for your report. So at the beginning of your report, I think you said, it went by quickly, but there were 381 units existing that came under the legislation 3 years ago. So do staff happen to know offhand if any of those properties have actually been redeveloped?
Through your worship to Councillor Gambioli, it was 381 parcels. And at time of speaking, to the best of my knowledge, there have not been applications that have proceeded based on the new unit densities they were allowed through compliance with Bill 44. I believe there have been confidential inquiries, but no firm applications or approvals at time of speaking.
Okay, so just to reiterate that there have been 381 parcels that have actually been enabled to increase fairly dramatically in density for the past 3 years, and none of them have been redeveloped. So anyway, that's just interesting, I think, for us to keep in mind. We've had some real concerns from people who have written to us in emails just in the last day or two about the effect of more impermeable surfaces and the concerns about canopy cover. So could staff just speak to that for a moment?
Through your worship to Councillor Gambioli, without wanting to provide a non-answer, obviously there would be significant technical work to take place. I think it's fair to say that I have described that what we would expect to be necessary would be increasing site coverage. That therefore obviously does impact the amount of a site that is in a building, just in very simple terms. So we would expect there to be an impact. I think, again, just being very matter of fact, zoning controls what can be built on a lot. So we cannot change zoning without changing what could be built. I think that's just a very basic point, both the buildings themselves and what's around them in terms of unbuilt space.
Right, but it does say in the report that to help mitigate the impact, staff will explore potential regulations related to permeable surfaces and tree planting, etc. So that's on your radar.
Through your worship, correct, exactly. It's something we're aware we would need to consider,
Okay.
do the best we could.
Okay, and in the report, it also talks about the planning committee having seen these, this sort of working approach. Did any of the members of our planning committee suggest that council should not be enabling this legislation?
Through your worship to Councillor Gambioli, I think that would have been putting the planning committee in a false position. So to be very clear, staff referred the item to the planning committee to take advantage of council's planning committee, their qualified local residents and professional experts. So the input we got from them was on what a good pathway to compliance could look like versus should council to comply. The planning committee is not there to provide political advice or legislative advice, it's there to provide planning recommendations.
No, I don't mean to say that we were asking them for political advice. I'm just asking you whether anyone suggested that we shouldn't be doing this. But that sounds like a no. So, okay. So just, in my time here, we've had, like you say, these kind of complex calculations. Normally we talk about 35% of the lot area, excluding the basement, and then there's exemptions for for garages, and there's other exemptions. So what you're suggesting here is that there would be an inclusive FAR of 0.45. And that's essentially what you're saying is essentially the same as what we currently have for single family homes. Very close, more or less.
Through your worship, the proposal would be for something in the order of 0.45 for a single building, but 0.65 for the lot, so that the owner would be able to build to similar regulations to today, but with greater flexibility in terms of how they can allocate that floor area and with a more straightforward calculation.
But it's because we're now including the basement in this number.
Yeah, one way of thinking about the 0.45 would be, at least, in terms of conceptual math, if right now you can do 0.3 for a house, but the basement could be excluded, and that would roughly be 0.15, then you add those together, then 0.45. Yeah.
Right.
Correct.
This is a much better way. I don't know why we didn't do this a long time ago. Okay, and so you're also suggesting principle number 4, that adding new options such as ownership, coach houses, triplexes, and fourplexes. When you say ownership, coach houses, you're talking about subdivision. What we're saying is subdivision. And does that apply to the triplexes and fourplexes as well as the coach houses?
The ownership would be through separate title. So you could have, for example, a triplex with 3 titles, similar to a duplex today.
Okay, so separate title is what we are. Okay, and my last question for now is principle number 5, maintain a primary/secondary building scale on a lot. So I've always wondered, why do we require that the big house, if you've got a big house and a coach house, why is the big house always in front? Because I've seen there are a couple of exceptions to that rule that have been built a while back, and to me looks a lot better when the small house or the coach house is in the front. It's not such an imposing structure, actually. And there's one over here on Inglewood that I drive by from time to time. And so why is it always in the back? Why is that the rule? And why are we still proposing that? Or could we be more flexible?
Through your worship, so it's in terms of the last part of that flexibility, certainly something staff would be happy to spend more time deliberating over and testing, if you like, should council direct us to proceed. In terms of why it's like that, that's really the history, if you like, of the introduction of coach houses in West Vancouver, where it was almost always a little bit the older sibling and the younger sibling. There was a primary scale for the house, and it was introducing the second residential dwelling, which was smaller and at the back of the lot typically. But I'm happy to, should direction be forthcoming, to provide further thought on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Watt, please.
Thank
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. So what specific capacity constraints have been identified by staff under this model?
Through your worship, I think staff are at the point where we are identifying things that we would want to test. So capacity constraints, for example, you mean in terms of servicing?
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, I think it's fair to say that there is something inherently challenging with this legislation in the sense that it is different to ROCP and typically how planning has operated over the preceding decades, where growth has been directed to centers, to nodes, where through larger forms of development, you can negotiate infrastructure upgrades or potentially amenity contributions and so on. This does imply a very distributed form of growth, right? It's across the districts. There could be new units in any neighborhood. We would expect that to have servicing impacts. We would need to model that. And the tool would, as opposed to being, for example, site-specific negotiations, it would be updates to the capacity requirements within things like our sewage bylaws. So I don't have a figure at time of speaking, but we would anticipate that work should compliance be met, and as buildings came on stream, we would anticipate that work leading to council needing to make decisions about its servicing bylaws.
Okay, and so we don't have an estimated infrastructure cost implication for a full build out of Bill 25 in our municipality. So we're kind of running blind.
Through your worship, no, we don't. And it's also, we wouldn't expect a full build out. I think that would be just being realistically, this kind of thing would take decades, in the same way that there are duplex zoned lots today where people choose to only build a single family, or there are single family lots where you could have a suite and a coach house. Many owners choose not to. So
Yeah.
it's not that staff would be anticipating, I think it was 12,350 units. It's that we're indicating to you that that is the overall capacity. In terms of build out, I think it'd be very speculative, but we would have time to adjust and continuously monitor and update servicing bylaws over the coming decades, not only the coming years.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add, you know, we are obviously constrained by our geography, and our forest canopy, while it's beautiful, is functional, you know, and anyway, I'll just leave it there at this point, but yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Watt. Councillor Thompson, please.
Thank you. I'm actually looking forward to hearing from the public on this. But I did want to make one clarification for council, just with regards to Councillor Gambioli asking Mr. Hawkins about the planning committee directive on this. And rightly so, he said this wasn't their purview to give directions. So the fact that they did not say we should not do it is irrelevant. And I say this because I really value our planning committee and the work that our staff does with that to come up with constructive feedback to council. And, you know, I was at the meeting, and I think they certainly got the sense of exasperation about how challenging this bill and other bills are. And we saw the discussion unfold in a very complicated way, but it was interesting, and I'm glad we had it. I think they've reinforced a lot of what staff recommended, and they found a way that they could comply. So I just want to make that clear to my fellow colleagues.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Cassidy, please.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Should we comply with Bill 25, in essence, we are agreeing to what the province wants us to do, which is densify. So are they in turn prepared to partner with us being compliant now, in the building of hospitals, roads and bridges, so that we don't die in our homes because we can't get to the hospital, or the hospital has insufficient services to assist us unless we go over the bridge, which we can't go over because we have too many people. What are they prepared to do for us? I mean, is this going to be a symbiotic relationship, or is this going to be a dictatorship?
Thank you, Councillor Cassidy. I'm going to let Mr. Hawkins off on that one.
I'll
Because
take it as rhetorical. Thank you.
I don't think Mr. Hawkins can fairly answer that question. And I must admit, I sit, no, it wouldn't be fair. I must admit, having sat here over, well, now decades, I remember back when we were very concerned about the loss of character in our community. And we downzoned single family homes from 0.45 FSR to 0.35 because we just felt we were losing the character. And no, no, I don't think so. I think we should, how many people in the public would like to address council on this?
I believe we have a total of 5 speakers,
Certainly.
4 speakers.
No, Mr. McIsaac. Oh, you're going to add your name.
Starting with Bill Chapman, followed by Kirk Lapointe.
Thank you, Mr. Chapman. Mr. Chapman, you've been involved in this discussion and debate over many years.
Come on, come on.
Nice to see you, Mr. Chapman.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name's Bill Chapman. I live in West Vancouver. My small survey firm is quietly celebrating our 120th anniversary this year. Since 1906, our 3 generations of land surveyors have created over half of the residential homes in West Vancouver, and we've surveyed more residential homes than any other survey firm. I would like to thank your planning department for putting together an excellent presentation of their outline for moving forward with implementing mandated provincial legislation, Bill 25, if council chooses to. It must have been difficult for them to have to work on this flawed provincial legislation to create a framework for bylaws mandated by the province that are not in the best interest of our municipality. Thank God, as a land surveyor, I don't have to do that. I'm limiting my comments to just 2 unintended consequences of the proposed all-inclusive FAR. You're in the planning staff report, the 3 locations. They support the premise that the approximately 10,400 residential parcels in West Vancouver would not be impacted by this proposed legislation if a resident chose to build a single family home. I quote the 3 pages in the report of where to find that. Unintended consequences, number 1, I disagree that they're correct. And my calculations indicate that 10,400 residential homes will be significantly impacted if don't correct a couple of things by trying to simplify it to all-inclusive. All-inclusive misses a lot of detail. And so I've drawn 2 sketches. And if you go to Plan A, I've tried to do this to simplify it for you. I know I'm showing zoning RS3 in a 10,000 square foot lot, which is 500 square feet shorter than you're allowed. But 10,000 gives me pure math for showing you simple numbers. So the main floor and second floor are allowed to have 3,000 square feet under that zone. You can see my main floor and second floor. The basement on Plan A, I have shown just underneath the main floor. And then I've shown the garage off to the left and an accessory structure to the right. If we add all of those areas up, we get to 5,210 square feet, which is 52.1% of the lot size.
That's time.
Sorry, Mr. Chapman, please continue.
Sorry, was I supposed to be 3 minutes?
That's okay. I think given your expertise, we
Okay.
should definitely be listening. So
Thank you very much. So what I'm saying is, by my calculation, the all-inclusive FAR is 0.52, not 0.45. And I be happy to discuss it with planning because I could be missing something. But by this calculation, I find that you would lose 710 square feet of buildable or a 13.6% reduction in the size of home that you could build if you implemented 0.45. When you look at the drawing, you can see for the 0.52 how you get at it. 14.7s on the main floor, 15.3 on the main, 14.7 on the second, which gives you your 3,000 square feet. So the additional area is putting the basement in below, which is another 15.3. Garage at 4.4%, accessory structure at 2.4%. So you can see how the exclusions add up to get to the 52. Now, Plan B, the only difference with Plan B is that I put basement underneath the garage. If I put basement underneath the garage, then my FAR goes up to 56.5%. I spoke with a few builders and architects to determine how often the designer builds space underneath the garage. It varied from 80% of the time with one builder who built a lot of homes in West Bend to 25% to 20%. And one said almost never, but because they built on difficult sites. It's also dependent on the slope of the lot, whether the garage is constructed on the upper floor rather than the main floor, or on the value of the extra space balanced against the added cost of construction underneath the garage. Based on those calculations, I'm requesting that council consider setting the all-inclusive FAR 0.52. I'm not asking you to go to the 0.565, but I am pointing out that if we went to the maximum permitted under the bylaw, every citizen in West Bend would suffer a loss. Unintended consequence number 2, which is my bigger concern in numbers, is with protecting the existing property rights of the area of maximum dwelling size in each RS zone. I don't know how many councilors were here when this was brought in. I should, because I catch quite a few of your meetings. But the calculation for maximum dwelling size, we took the minimum lot area permitted in an RS zone. Example of RS3, 10,500. We doubled it to get 21,000. And then we took the FAR 0.3, which had the maximum house you could have is 6,300 square feet. And staff says in this report that they're going to freeze those numbers and keep those numbers. Now, I did call planning department, and you'll see at the bottom, planning department has been very helpful in reviewing my concerns to the extent that they may ask me to review moving forward how to eliminate these unintended consequences. But by freezing the numbers, which show on the table on the last page, I find the impact on RS3 is that you're limiting it to 585.4 square meters, where by my calculations, if I include the extra space for the building, the garage, and the accessory structure, in actual fact, the equivalent number under the new legislation should be 965.6. I've calculated every one of these 5 zones to see how it would work. And again, willing to sit down with planning, as I have for the last 30 years, to go over these numbers to see why. But the impact on people that live on big lots is over 1/3 of their ability to build a house would be removed.
Thank you, Mr. Chapman. And I hate to tell you this, it's been more than 30 years.
No, over 30 years that I've offered to work with staff or go out with the building department to understand how the
Got it.
surveyor works in the
I
community.
think Councillor Gambioli may have a question for you. Is it a question for Mr. Chapman or someone else? Thank you, Mr. Chapman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wondered if staff had a response to this.
Mr. Hawkins?
Sure, through the mayor to Councillor Gambioli, I mean, we're aware of Mr. Chapman's concerns and comments. We think that he is characterizing them accurately, and we're happy to sit down and talk with him about how that might look going forward. And remember, right now we're at a principles phase where we're talking about sort of high level how we would work things. As we get into specific, if council decides to move forward on this, if we got into specific bylaw drafting, we're happy to work on these nuanced issues and work with the community and with council on bringing forward those bylaws.
Thanks very much. The next speaker is Mr. Lapointe. Mr. Lapointe.
Good evening, and I'm just going to take a small piece of what I think is a very big issue, Mayor. I want to focus on the process that's behind this proposal because, regardless where people stand on the initiative itself, the way you get to a decision is going to matter, I think, just as much as the actual decision. It's not a routine administrative step, as you know. It involves some of the most significant powers that council has, and it changes what can be built and how neighborhoods evolve, how people experience their community over time. And that kind of decision demands time, it demands clarity, meaningful public engagement. And that's where this process worries me a little bit. It raises concern because we're now facing a deadline as a community that's imposed, and the time remaining, I don't think can yield a properly informed result, one that everyone's going to be satisfied with, that was authentic. What we're seeing here is a timeline that moves really quickly from presentation tonight to decision, with limited time for residents to continue to review, understand, and respond. And for most people, these are just not simple documents. They involve technical drawings and density changes and policy implications that really take a lot of time to absorb. And this is not something a resident can reasonably review, and certainly in days preceding tonight's meeting, or even in a couple of weeks, and then provide thoughtful input. And what I'm hearing tonight and what I've been hearing in the community is a lack of clarity at this stage. And so when timelines are compressed like this, the result, unfortunately, becomes predictable. The only people who can respond effectively are those that are already deeply engaged, those who have the time, expertise, or professional involvement to track these issues closely. And most everyone else, which involves the majority of residents, and we're talking about thousands of people in this community, are left trying to catch up.
Thank you, Mr. Lapointe. You understand, of course, Mr. Hawkins, just for clarity, that the province has mandated that no public hearings are allowed to be held on this matter. So I would encourage you to write to the province, write to the minister and say this process is wrong. I couldn't agree with you more, sir. Oh, sorry.
There has to be demonstrable broad consultation for this. And right now what we have is selective participation, and it creates a real risk that council and the community is going to hear only from a narrow slice of the community tonight, rather than the community as a whole. And that public confidence is depending on people feeling they had time to understand and absorb these issues. And when that time is shortened, I would say confidence erodes. And even if the outcome is ultimately the same, the legitimacy of the decision is going to be weakened. People aren't going to judge necessarily just what council decides or what it has to decide. They're going to judge how it decided it. And so it's not necessarily about delaying decisions unnecessarily. It's about ensuring these decisions are made with the benefit of informed public input. And I don't feel that the balance is right as of right now.
Thank you, Mr. Lapointe. I guess Mr. Hawkins, Mr. Lapointe, I don't think heard me, but maybe he'll listen if you could outline the procedure.
No, Mayor, with respect, I do understand that this is a matter that's being imposed by the province. what I'm encouraging you this evening to do is to find ways in order to have broader public engagement before the deadline.
Thank you. I think we would love to do that, Mr. Hawkins.
To your worship, yeah, I mean, it sounds like all parties understand that the deadline is the provinces and the legislative process is the provinces. It's obviously different to how all major planning initiatives are being conducted. From a staff perspective, and I'm sure from a council perspective, where normally there's extensive engagement, I think all I can realistically commit to, should council direct staff to proceed, is ensure that we are putting as much information out there as possible, raising awareness as much as we can, and making ourselves as available as we can.
Thank you. Mr. Bailey.
Mr. Mayor, like, just to be clear, I mean, the deadline is June 30th. So, you know, that's 3 months. I think June 11th was the date that we'd have to have the reports that, yeah, June 2nd for first reading. That, I mean, so the bylaw then essentially needs to be written in almost, 6 weeks. That gives us, given this provincial requirement, almost zero opportunity to do what, staff would think is meaningful consultation and discussion with the community. So the point's well taken. We agree. We think we should be doing robust discussion on something that's that important. But frankly, the way that the framework's been established by the provincial timelines don't make that possible.
Yeah, I must admit, in the course of my life, having served in public office since 1979, I find this the most atrocious imposition of provincial authority. And been involved in encouraging public involvement for decades. And anyway, let's hear from the next speaker. Thank you, Mr. Lapointe.
John Cave, followed
Mr.
by
Cave. Nice to
Graham
see you.
McIsaac.
Mr. Cave, great to see you this evening.
Hey, nice to see everybody again. I love bringing joy to the mayor and council. I can report Miami had a 10-minute wait to depart, and there was ice in the drinks. But going forward, this is outrageous, absolutely outrageous. We have to deal with fire, police, schools, parking on and off property, traffic off the North Shore. You want to try and get it between 2 and 7 o'clock at night to Lionsgate Hospital? Unbelievable. Can't happen. If we had an emergency evacuation off the North Shore, none of us would get off the North Shore. We have to deal with water, sanitary, and then we now have to deal with DRIPA private ownership from our friend Mr. Eby. Eby will not be with us after next election, nor will this incompetent housing minister. She has not brought, and their government has not brought, one new house that has been built by the current minister or her government, nor was one new home built while she served on Vancouver Council. She operated a community outreach program in the East Vancouver and claims to have a MA from Berkeley. We can see the way that the East Vancouver situation has evolved around our friend Mr. Eby and his housing ministers. We're giving developers carte blanche to destroy the lifestyle of the North Shore. Those that will want to be involved at this point, as Councillor Gambioli said, we've had 3 or 4 years of this and not one developer has decided that he wants to invest his money in this sort of project. I think the government should be encouraging their ministers and stuff to solve the problems in East Vancouver. without coming to West Vancouver to destroy our lifestyle for no reason that I can see. And would encourage that we have a large rally on the bridge or in Ambleside Park over the next 2 to 3 months, showing our displeasure. But we can all be happy to know that the NDP will not be in power by the time, if we fight this thing, by the time we fight it and then they disappear, hopefully, that we can then turn around the current political situation and have the next government withdraw this bill that they're trying to impose on us.
Thank you, Mr. Cave. Thanks for joining us. The next speaker.
Sorry, Mayor Sager, Graham.
Mr.
Maybe just wait.
McIsaac.
There's a name on the list that doesn't have an item attached. Adam Mazzari, are you for item 5? For 5, okay, sorry.
Sorry,
Mr.
it's
McIsaac.
Mr. Mazzari. Is it Mr. Mazzari?
Yes.
Thanks for joining us this evening,
Thank you very
sir.
much for your time.
Thank you.
That's why I have some point about the zoning. Thanks a lot. Good evening, Mayor and the Council. I want to focus on a very specific but a critical issue on the proposed zoning. The treatment of parking within the floor space ratio calculation. As it stands, the proposal appears to include parking area, particularly enclosed garage within the allowance FSR. This seems like a minor technical details, but in practice, it has a minor impact on whether multiplex housing is valuable. Let's break down this. When you include parking in FSR, you are effectively forcing a trade-off. Every square feet used for parking is a square foot that cannot be used for living space. On a typical lot with a proposed FAR of 0.65 for 4 units or 0.8 for 6 units, that's already constrained building envelope. Now lower in parking. Even a modest enclosed garage, say 250 square feet per unit, can consume a significant portion of that allowance floor area. The result is simple. Either unit size shrink to a point where they are no longer livable or marketable, or the number of the units become invisible to deliver. In both cases, the intent of the legislation is undermined. This is why in most municipalities, include Vancouver and Burnaby, parking is typically excluded from FSR, or a minimum treatment treated with significant exemptions. And that is a reason for that. The parking is not habitable space, and it does not contribute to housing supply. So counting is against density directly penalize the delivery of the housing. The province has also made it clear that municipalities should not introduce regulatory barriers that makes multiplex development impractical. Include parking in the FSR is one of those barriers. It forcing insufficient design, reduce unit yield, and ultimately discourage redevelopment. And ironically, it can also push projects toward surface parking solutions, which negatively impact site design, landscaping, and overall neighborhood quality. So this approach doesn't just affect feasibility, it can actually produce worse urban design outcomes. If the goal is to enable gentle density within the meaning and livability, then the zoning needs to prioritize usable, livable floor area, not penalize it. I would strongly recommend that the council reconsider how parking is treated within FSR. At a minimum, exclude enclosed parking from FSR calculation or provide a meaningful exemption that does not compromise unit size or count. This is a standard approach across the municipalities, and this is critical to make multiplex house valuable. Because right now, when what may appear to be a small technical choice is actually one of the biggest constraints in the entire framework. Thank you.
Thanks very much, sir. Thank you. Mr. McIsaac is next, is he?
Mr. McIsaac, followed by Sandy Lytle.
Thank you, Mr. McIsaac. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Interesting discussion.
Nice.
So I'm going to try and get through this very quickly because I know I've only got 3 minutes, so you'll have to excuse me. You know I'm Graham McIsaac, and for those that don't, I'm a 44-year resident of West Vancouver. I came here in 1982. I'm an ADRA board member, and you will all have received an email from Heather Mersey, the president, signed by the ADRA board and supported by the board on the topic of blanket rezoning. I don't intend to repeat all this in the email because you've already got it. I do want, having listened tonight, to thank Mr. Hawkins very much, because I realize for him and his department, this is an enormous imposition. And I think he's done as creditable a job in the time period he's had. So these, I'm going to make some personal remarks here. I acknowledge that the NDP radical government is trying to impose mass zoning on communities. This is an autocratic top-down policy that undermines democracy, local planning, and public input into how neighborhoods are developed. Our mayor and council, to their credit, have pushed back against this. I realize that council will soon find itself in a difficult position, it probably already is, if it does not agree to this mass zoning. I would request that you continue to fight in every reasonable way that you can this ridiculous legislation. The current NDP government will not be here forever, but once you put these zoning changes through mass zoning, they will be very, very hard to reverse. West Vancouver is a very special community. We cherish access to beaches, wonderful parks, forests, beautiful residence gardens throughout our community. We do not want West Vancouver to become a concrete jungle like many other communities are becoming. No one is against development that supports maintaining the seaside village atmosphere and respects the character of neighborhoods. We have many examples of good developments in our community that increase density while being sensitive to their surroundings. Mass zoning will not achieve that. If I understand, I think I understand it, I won't go into this bit, but I think it's naive also on the parking issue for those that are zone 6 plexes to believe that those living in West Vancouver will have no vehicles. They'll have 1 or 2 vehicles per household, I can guarantee it. Most people living in apartments and townhouses today have vehicles. They may have 1, they may have 2. So the whole idea that you're going to have 6 plexes with potentially 12 cars, if 2 people in each unit, it's just inconceivable. You're going to create a parking nightmare. West Vancouver's already zoned property. We have zoned property already that's well above what has been built or likely to be built over many years. There's no need for this rezoning. Why would we then proceed to upzone nearly every single family property? Housing targets set by this province are based on completions. This is insanity. It makes no sense. Municipalities don't have control over when construction's completed or started. They have control over zoning. They do not have control over construction. They have permits and things they have to issue, but they don't have direct control. Over the longer term, increased housing density through such blanket rezoning will only raise land values, increasing the cost per housing unit. In the short term, the economics may not result in many projects proceeding, but individual approvals and specific projects is a far better way to go. That provides far more design control than mass rezoning and makes sure these developments fit in with the neighborhood. The eventual increase in density of the population around 24,500 people, that doesn't include the 7,000 up at Cypress Village, will require funding of water, sewer, infrastructure, put precious, I'm just almost finished, transit and roads, parks, community centers, fire and police services, schools, medical facilities. Who's going to pay for all this required infrastructure? I doubt the NDP government with its humongous deficits, drowning in debt, will contribute to West Vancouver for this. So in conclusion, all I would ask, and I realize you guys are in a difficult situation here, I really do. I think you've done a lot of work to try and push back. I would ask you to keep trying in whatever way you can to fight this ridiculous legislation. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. McIsaac. Thank you. Ms. Lytle, please.
Sandy Lytle.
Thank you for joining us this evening.
Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. I think Mr. McIsaac has certainly spoken much of what I'm going to say, but I would like to let you know I strongly object to the province's heavy-handed interference and the removal of decision-making authority from the district.
Oh, she
I'm
did.
sorry. I'm
No,
sorry.
I
live in West
actually
Vancouver. Yeah.
introduced you for you.
Upzoning allows increased density. It raises land values, it raises costs, and it does not reduce prices. Accepting this mandate means over what I heard tonight, 90% of West Vancouver single-family properties will be affected and significantly change the face of West Vancouver. Local people need to have a say. The district's ability to require off-street parking is going to be restricted. 6 units mean 6 to 12 cars, as Mr. McIsaac said, in an area where parking is already at a premium. The frontage of those lots are 60 feet generally, and that allows for 3 parking spaces of 20 feet, which is standard. Where is everybody going to go? There is a problem with transportation infrastructure. There is no accommodation for critical infrastructure, schools, community centers, parks, healthcare, to allow for this increase in population. And the opportunities for meaningful public input is significantly reduced or eliminated for these projects to comply with zoning. And I do applaud Mr. Hawkins for putting together a good plan, but I don't think we should take it. I urge the mayor and council to utilize all available legal and policy options to oppose this legislation. Please do not voluntarily adopt zoning measures that do not serve the long-term interests of West Vancouver residents, nor accept compromises that could prove detrimental to our community. Threats, ultimatums, coercions, and coercion or authoritative rulings are not the hallmarks of democracy. I ask that council take a firm and principled approach to standing up for the interests of its residents and stand up to the unrealistic demands of the province and the current provincial government. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lyman. Thank you, Ms. Dallas. Any?
Maddie Tavenpour, followed by Andy Crossick.
Thank you.
And we have 1 member online.
Thanks very much. Good evening, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Architect, AIBC architect. First, I want to acknowledge the hard work staff put on this, both community planning and development planning. I have a few suggestions for further improvement of the proposal. One is in regard to FAR calculation, in regard to both parking and basement. So with the parking experience of other municipalities, specifically Vancouver, shows that if we add units without providing parking exclusion, we are going to end up with the streets on vehicles parked on both sides. So because developers, they're going to build as much as residential floor area as possible, and then leave the cars to park on rear yards or on the street. So I believe we should not combine the exclusion of the parking with FAR calculation. We are not a transit-oriented municipality. We don't have rapid transit. Families rely on cars. So my suggestion is 2 cars per unit exclusion. And with regard to the basement, I understand the focus on drafting this report was to kind of make it as much as possible comply with the existing build form. However, we should pay attention to people lifestyle in Vancouver as well. This report will result in very small units. My suggestion is to add exclusion for basement. We don't see any building without basement in West Vancouver right now. All buildings have basement, and basements are a nice place for recreation room, for a nice size storage, for a den, and it's part of the day-to-day family life. So if we exclude that, again, developers, people, they're gonna build as much as possible above ground, because excavating increase the cost. So, and the basement does not add to the building bulk and mass. So if we keep that in place, it would be a nice addition to the units. In addition to that, so our OCP allows a variety of building typologies along the Marine Drive. So I would say, and I observe many applications applied for townhouses along Marine Drive. So if we let right proposed developments happen in right location, we don't need to be worried about wrong development in wrong location. So let's extend the 6 units along the Marine Drive, make a baseline for that along the Marine Drive, and then this will streamline the process, and this will decrease the number of rezoning and applications along the Marine Drive. Thank you. That was it.
Thanks very much, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Krotchek.
Followed by Gary Prosnek, and then one online.
Welcome to our newest member of the West Vancouver Police Board.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council, and I'm not here as a member of the
No,
board, the
I know
library
you're not,
board,
but I
or
want to,
even Kami.
I want to thank you for your service to our community.
And I look forward to that service as well. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Andy Krausick from West Vancouver. I want to address several things, some of which were said tonight and some of which perhaps need to be said. First of all, I just want to make a very, very quick comment off to the side about East Vancouver, not the east side, but East Vancouver. I worked in East Vancouver for 5 years. I am very proud of the people in East Vancouver, the schools, the hospitals, and everything that is in East Vancouver. Just
A nice
needed
side
to
note.
say that.
I have lots of friends who live there as well.
Thank you. So first of all, I would agree with concern about, and I'm here, I should say, not for myself, I'm here to speak on behalf of the Community Housing Action Coalition, CHAC, which I think many of you on council know has for many, many years advocated for affordable housing throughout the North Shore. And as a member of CHAC, I am aware that we are not the only council that deals with this. The other 2 councils on the North Shore have. And what amazes me is, in fact, when I was asked, what is West Vancouver doing? I wasn't able to say anything for the last 6 or 8 weeks. North Van City, North Van District have both had some community input already. My understanding, it's an interesting side note, that North Van City is in fact having a town hall, not a public hearing, but a town hall on this very issue in a couple of weeks. And so it amazes me that West Vancouver, this is the first time that this has come before council. Yes, it's been at the planning committee, but many of us are not aware of planning committee's agendas. And so it seems to me that the discussion about the truncated time could have been extended a little more had perhaps West Vancouver began to talk about Bill 25 some time ago. Having said that, I appreciate this. It's not going to be enough time, but I just wanted to make the point that others are dealing with that same timeline. Others have had some different ways of dealing with it. Secondly, I do want to remind people what's already been said. This is going to happen. Regardless of what you may think will happen to the provincial NDP in the next year and a half, it's going to happen in the next 3 months. And I would rather have a process where at least we bring back some bylaws that you as council can discuss and defeat at that time, but at least allow people in West Vancouver to see what that's going to look like. And I believe the question before you tonight is exactly that. Should we allow planning to put together some bylaws that we can then discuss further? And you can put together whatever parameters around that discussion, no public hearings, but at least have some parameters. And finally, I would make the point that 30,000 people are not coming as a result of this tomorrow morning. We had that discussion with Cypress Village. Everyone was worried about 7,000 people ascending up the hill when Cypress Village was permitted. Well, guess what? first of all, it's still another 7 years before, I'm sorry to Jeff Kroll and BPP, it's still another 7 years before even some of the very first buildings are going to happen. And those 7,000, who knows whether that's going to happen. The 25, 30,000 that folks are screaming off the rooftops in some cases simply are not going to be in the next 2 years. There may very well never come. In fact, they may come in to replace folks like us that aren't going to be here. So with that, I thank you for your time, and I hope to at least see that as council, you're going to be able to allow the community to see what these bylaws look like, and perhaps at that time, make a decision based on your best judgment, and that is your best judgment of where it should go from there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Prozak. Mr. Hawkins, is there a way to, I'm unaware that the city was finding a creative way to have public engagement. Sorry, was it the district or the city?
There seems to be some concern that we're not coming forthright with this information soon enough, but I believe we're in a process full of, can you?
Through your worship to Councillor Thompson and to yourself. I'm honestly not familiar with any town hall that our North Shore neighbours may be hosting. My understanding was the City of Northam was focusing uniquely on heritage type questions for their heritage designated areas, but I could be remiss in that. And that the District of Northam was, they've certainly had previous council meetings, but that they were essentially doing a kind of notification that this is happening. That's my understanding. I could be wrong. And obviously, should council wish to pursue some form of town hall, that's actually a form of a council meeting. So I
don't think we can do it.
I'm not a lawyer, I'm a planner. I think the requirement is that there not be a de facto public hearing, right? That the requirement be that a meeting not be conducted in a fashion that it is optically has created the impression that this is a public hearing. I think that's the legal challenge with this, but I'm certainly not a lawyer.
Okay, well, let's hear from the next speaker.
Gary Prosnick.
Mr. Prozak, thanks for joining us this evening.
Thanks, Mayor. Mr. Mayor. I don't like this broadly based helter-skelter thing, but it's clear that West Van is way behind affordable housing. And it was clear on the presentation I made for the last 3 years, my findings. It's clear from the advisor's report. It's clear that North Van District hasn't done enough. It's clear that many people in Greater Vancouver have not done enough. So the real problem here to get a sustainable community is what should we have been doing? Now I know we're getting jammed here, but last fall I was heartened by the fact that we did do some changes to the OCP that would favor node development, and I really support node development, basically around schools, because we already have the distribution and we could create communities around nodes, and you can service that a lot better. So I see a real problem here, but we're being jammed. The question I have is, what did we do to provide an alternative to the government to do a properly planned building affordable housing around nodes, because it was referred to in the material, or because I know we've been saying we got to resist this, but the reality is, if you look at the public hearings we've had in information, 75 to 80% of West Vancouver wants more housing, wants affordable housing. So that is already clear, notwithstanding some of the comments made earlier. We have imported a lot of traffic because we do not have people here walking to schools. They're driving from all over the place. So the question I have, because I'm a person that has to come in a lot of times and clean up, is there a way to engage them on the node issues versus this other one, which is not really workable from a pure infrastructure? And I take it, you could ask them, are you going to provide infrastructure? Because West Van doesn't have the money to do that. And maybe going off Andy's comments, maybe staff, and I don't know if it's possible, but can you come up with some changes that would promote the node issue as well as what they maybe jam you down on. But I don't believe people are going to develop 4 units on lots. It's the same thing that Nora Gambioli mentioned, that there's no take up on the 3 units. I don't think the 4 units are economical either. And I think North Van's done a study on it that says that the 4 units with affordable rental is not economic. So you might put all this legislation in and no one builds. Because the other big issue here is we got to cut the cost down and the red tape, because you can't build affordable housing. And affordable housing, by the way, for me is a $1.3 million townhouse. You can buy that all over Vancouver, but here, because we haven't built any. So my question is, can you provide a dual, some changes that will also promote the nodes, which you can do with some spot zoning, et cetera, encourage that, and recognize that we might not be able to get a lot of, we might not get a lot of support for this helter-skelter stuff because you don't have the servicing, and it's going to die anyway. But let's have something that we can actually point to say we can solve this problem, because we have a big problem.
Thanks very much, sir. Do we have any other
Our
speakers?
last
You said
speaker-
there's someone online?
Yes, Dana Mulhern. So we're going to promote her as a panelist, and she should be able to unmute her mic and address council. You have 3 minutes.
Any luck? Is it Ms. Mulhern? Ms. Mulhern, can you hear us? If you can, could you say hello? Or?
Ms. Mulhern, you have to accept when we advance you to be a panelist. You can accept it and then you can speak. But it appears you've declined. We'll try one more time.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
You can. You can hear me. Oh, good.
Yes, we can hear you, Ms. Mulhern. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you to the staff for this very thorough and careful study. I am representing Positive Voices West Vancouver, and I thoroughly think that we have to build a successful and comprehensive community, and we can't do that without diverse housing supply for West Van. I'm very sorry that it's taken so long. It has been, West Vancouver is known for never passing housing, unfortunately. It's imperative. They help businesses survive and grow. That means citizen customers. Where will our children, grandchildren live? Where are we going to downsize? We must maintain the community for all citizens as they change and grow. Now is the time to take action, not to delay again. We need to be part of the solution. Please, West Vancouver, do not be famous for delaying one more time. We really look forward, and I speak for many positive voices in West Vancouver, that we need to work with the province and have some new housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mulhern. Do we have any other speakers?
It doesn't appear we do. No.
Thank you. Members of council, we've received for information the report. Councillor Gambioli.
Right, so I am going to make the second part of the motion.
Do you wish to read it or just move it as written?
Well, let's see, I can read it, yeah. So just to be clear, staff be directed to prepare zoning bylaw amendments to comply with the provincial small-scale multi-unit housing Bill 25 requirements as outlined in Appendix D to the report titled Small-Scale Multi-Unit Housing Legislation Bill 25 Compliance, Direction to Proceed, dated March 11th, 2026, from the Senior Community Planner.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Seeing no seconder, the motion fails.
You're not going to second it, Mr. Mayor?
Well, I don't think it's going to pass either way. What I would say
I think
for
it's
tonight is the minister was here on Friday. We received the minister's letter, which was set a much more conciliatory tone. I have the honor of representing Metro Vancouver on the Municipal Finance Association board, and we have our annual general meeting in a couple of weeks in Victoria. And I think I would like to take that opportunity to follow up discussions with the minister and see whether there is some willingness to consider alternatives. I mean, that's the step I will take, irregardless, because she did open the door for further discussions when I met with her.
Well, I would like to be able to, I think it's important to the public that we explain why, and we each need to take responsibility for passing or voting or not voting against this motion. And, I think, as you said, we're trying to create a conciliatory tone with the province. And I think, as Mr. Prozic suggested, it's a very dangerous step to take, to not ask staff to try and put a framework around this legislation, because the province can come in after June 30th and legislate it themselves. So if we don't have our own staff working on this to try and create a made in West Vancouver solution or set of amendments, then we're going to get a bunch of shoeboxes for sure.
Well,
And I think that's really dangerous. And we have experience from other municipalities to follow. And I think this is really a missed opportunity if we don't do this.
Thank you. Well, it is up to other members of council whether they wish to speak further on the issue or not. There was no seconder to the motion, so we'll move on to the next item unless members of council wish to speak. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, I don't mind saying a few words because I'm not going to support directing staff to do further work. This council started off not agreeing, certainly recognizing the challenges and barriers that these bills bring to our community, and we're seeing now that many other communities feel the same way. I think it's kind of disingenuous at this point to continue saying we will adopt the measures. I think staff's actually done a really good job. They did an exceptional job when we complied to Bill 44 in a way that was meaningful to our community. And that was accepted by the province. And then Bill 25 comes in and wipes out any kind of preservation we have of our historical areas, of our more sensitive areas like Ambleside with these small lots. I can't imagine 3, 4, 6 houses going on those. I just think it's sensible to be clear with the province. We are willing to work with them. And I do believe the mayor is having great conversations. And I think we need to be clear about where we're willing to go. And I'm happy to stand back on this bill. And I also want to point out that, these bills are coming through at a time where you don't have a government that has a strong opposition. And you're not seeing a big consensus coming from Victoria on these bills, right? These are things that are not well supported. And these are really big bills that affect municipalities. I've been talking to a number of people in the Conservative leadership race, and this is big from tip to toe in BC. Municipalities are, beside themselves of how to meet the requirements for the infrastructure around these builds, whether they're building them now or not. The whole market's soft, we know that, but implementing and encouraging this type of development is just the wrong direction in my mind. So, I hope the province will continue working with us. I think we've got some good ideas. We actually, I think somebody mentioned that we notoriously don't approve a lot of housing projects, and we've approved everything that's come in front of us this council. So not to mention Cypress Village, which increases our population, quite a bit over the plan. Anyway, I'll stop there for now, but.
Thank you. Yeah, I would encourage everyone to read the minister's letter where she does acknowledge the work that West Vancouver has done, particularly in the last few years. Okay, item number 6, emergency management bylaw. Councillor Gambioli, please.
Right, so I will recommend that the proposed North Shore Emergency Management Establishing Bylaw number 5416, 2026 be read a first, second, and third time.
Thank you. Is there a second? Oh,
And-
sorry.
And that proposed North Shore Emergency Management Delegation Bylaw number 5417, 2026 be read a first, second, and third time.
Thank you, Councillor Lambert. Any discussion? We'll call a question. All in favor? Contrary carried. Thanks very much. Item number 7, this is the bylaw resulting from our earlier public hearing, Councillor Snyder. And on this, I would encourage an amendment.
Yeah, I'd like to propose to Ms. Dallas if she's going to assist me with an amendment to the proposed bylaw, which will take out the recommendation to delete the power poles from the planning committee, or from the variance board.
Thank you, Councillor Snyder. So I understand that council wishes to modify zoning bylaw 4662 2010 amendment bylaw 5425 2026 by removing section 3.2.3 in its entirety. So that would be a new motion to go under number 1.
Thank you. This is taking the advice that came out of the public hearing from our Board of Variance. And I think it was wise advice. So would you like to make that
Yeah,
motion?
I'd like to make that motion, please.
And Councillor Watt, would you second that? Thank you. Any
So just to
discussion?
confirm, that is the
That's the amendment.
just the amendment.
Yes, and then we'll call a vote on the amended motion.
Okay, we have them written in such a way that they're sort of in order that the bylaw be modified.
Okay, can we
With
do
the
it
first
all as
modification,
one
yeah,
motion?
so I'm suggesting it be inserted on after point 1 in the existing recommendation.
Got it. So this can be one motion with that in.
That is correct.
Thank
I'm
you.
happy to read it if council would like.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councillor Snyder, you're agreeing to that
I
as the
am agreeing
mover?
to that, yeah.
Councillor Watt is the seconder. Any discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Contrary carried. Thanks very much. Item number 8. This is just an adoption of an earlier passed bylaw. Councillor Thompson, please.
Thank you. I'll propose that Development Procedure Bylaw number 4940, 2017, Amendment Bylaw number 5439, 2026 be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Lambert. Call a question. Any discussion? Call a question. All in favor? Contrary carried. Thank you. We have a new item of business. It is a Ambleside local area plan.
I think there's one more. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, there is on the next page. I missed that.
I'll recommend that proposed fees and charges bylaw number 5383, 2025, Amendment Bylaw number 5440, 2026 be adopted.
Thank you. Thank you. Any discussion? Question? All in favor? Contrary
Sorry,
carried.
Mayor Sager, I just need to back up just a little bit. There was one additional motion that's just respecting the official community plan amendment back under item 7. So that's that proposed official community plan bylaw 4985, 2018.
Oh, you're right.
Amendment bylaw 5428, 2026 be read a second and third time.
Thank you. Councillor Snyder. So moved, and Councillor Watt. Thank you.
Thank you.
Call a question. All in favor? Contrary carried. Thanks for catching that. We have a motion discussion on the local area plan. Because I own property at the corner of 15th and Bellevue, sadly, I can't participate in the Ambleside local area plan because it includes that property. I have to ask Councillor Thompson to assume the chair.
I believe Councillor Snyder, are you going to put?
It's me.
Or it's gonna
Right.
go in.
So thank you. So this is, I think, a very exciting news. There's a potential end to the impasse of the Ambleside Center local area plan. So after almost a year of waiting, we are bringing this back with the following 4 recommended motions. I don't know if staff can put that on the screen or if I'll just read them all out. Or both. That's okay.
Sorry,
All right.
Councillor Gambioli. I don't have it available to go on screen, but I'm happy to read them out. I have them in front of me.
I can read them out, but that's
Thank
fine.
you.
Okay, so I will read. So recommendation number 1, that the opportunities for consultation on the proposed official community plan amendment with persons, organizations, and authorities as outlined in the report from the Senior Manager of Community Planning and Sustainability dated April 25th, 2025, be endorsed as sufficient consultation for purposes of Section 475 of the Local Government Act.
I will second that.
Okay, any discussion or questions? No, all those in favor? Contrary? Noted.
Okay. We recommend, and this is the really substantive part, that proposed official community plan bylaw number 4985, 2018, amendment bylaw number 5386, 2026 be modified by replacing Schedule A guidelines BFC 3, policies 3.2.2A and 3.2.3A regarding 1600 block South Marine Drive and 1400 block North Marine Drive respectively, with official community plan policy BFC4, and by revising associated amendment bylaw text and figures as required for alignment.
I will second that.
Okay.
And I will just say in plain language, what that means is that we are suggesting that the Ambleside Center local area plan as proposed almost a year ago go forward with the exception of the 2 special sites. And those be essentially the current OCP standard. So in other words, yeah, hopefully that's somewhat clear, but that will be more clear when it comes back on the council agenda.
Can I just make a comment in regards to that? So just to be clear, that means that although nothing has changed, it does not prevent anybody from coming forward with a plan or proposal for any of those 2 special sites. So even though we're zoned for a certain zoning at this point, we're still very open to any proposals that may come forward for those 2 sites. So that doesn't preclude that from occurring by passing this as is.
Any other comments? I will say I'm really impressed with our council and staff working through this barrier too, because there's a lot of good work put into the LAP, and because of 2 significant sites, we couldn't seem to agree on something. So I really appreciate all the work and compromises, and very happy to bring this forward. Okay, next motion.
Call the vote, I think.
Oh, sorry, yes, call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Thanks, carried.
Okay, and third recommendation, that proposed official community plan bylaw number 4985, 2018, amendment bylaw number 5386, 2026 be read a first time as modified.
I will second that.
Any comments? All those in favor? Contrary?
Sure.
Noted. Okay. Passed.
And fourth recommendation, that the proposed official community plan bylaw number 4985, 2018, amendment bylaw number 5386, 2026 be presented at a public hearing scheduled for April 27th, 2026 at 5 p.m. in the Municipal Hall Council Chamber and via electronic communication facilities, and that notice be given of the scheduled public hearing.
I will second that.
Yeah, any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Oh, unanimous. Okay, thank you. Passed. Super. We can move on to item 10. Yes, congratulations. I'll go reclaim the mayor.
Thanks very much, Councillor Thompson. We now go to the consent agenda. Councillor Cassidy, please. Mr. Cave, sorry.
Sure. Sorry, Mayor Sager, we have a member of the public that would like to speak to item number 9.
Oh, okay. There you go, you're back.
Just 3 minutes.
Mayor, you need to be here.
No, just 3 minutes is all we need.
New business,
I'm sorry, Mr. I'm half
John
asleep
Cave.
here. John Cave. I apologize. Public input for this item is not permitted because it's, we're setting the date for a public hearing. I apologize. It's prohibited pursuant to our council procedure bylaw. I'm sorry. No, you can't. I'm sorry. But you can speak at the public hearing that will be held on April 27th. Under section 12 of public questions and comments, you may speak. I apologize. Yes, please. Thank you. That's right.
Thanks very much, Councillor Thompson. The consent agenda, Councillor Cassidy, please.
Okay, or shall I just say as written?
Yes,
Keep it
please.
simple. Recommend that the consent agenda items be as written approved.
Thanks very much, Councillor Lambert. Any discussion? Call a question. All in favor? Contrary carried. Thanks very much. We have a couple of other items under other items. Number 11, Councillor Thompson, please.
I'll recommend that staff be directed to consider improvements with the intent to provide more clarity for developers in the application review and approval process, including number 1, simplified regulations for the building development. Number 2, eliminating regulations where appropriate to streamline building and development processes. And number 3, increase reliance and qualified professional submissions to reduce staff review times. And that staff be directed to consider referring this discussion back to the planning committee at a future date.
Thank you, Councillor Snyder. Thank you. Any discussion? Call a question. All in favor? Contrary carried. Thanks very much. Item number 12, please, Councillor Watt.
Yes, I would like to recommend that the following recommendation from the Finance and Revenue Advisory Committee's February 10, 2026 meeting be received for information, that staff be directed to explore the municipal and regional district tax program for short-term rentals in West Vancouver, and that staff be directed to not explore the municipal and regional district tax program for short-term rentals in West Vancouver at this time. And I do have an explanation for that. We have looked at this and discussed it, and the money doesn't actually stay within the municipality, and it wouldn't benefit the municipality in any way. There wasn't much more to it, was there?
No, it's just
No. And that was something I had long advocaate for as well, but I was quite surprised to discover it would offer no benefit to us.
Thank you, Councillor Watt. Councillor Gambioli? Would you second?
I'm
that?
sorry. Yes, second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Call a question. All in favor? Contrary carried. Thanks. Reports from Mayor and Council. Any council member would like to report first? Councillor Cassidy.
Like to report as the vice chair of the police board that we are proceeding at a good speed with finding our next police chief. And Chief Lowe will be stepping down as of August 1st, and we will be hoping to have his successor in place in July.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Your wastewater Metro Vancouver committee went out to the Annacis Island treatment plant where we watched the entire process. And at the end of the day, the hope is that to use the bioproducts from sewage for fueling cars and also for, well, what would you call, you do with plants? You stick it on the ground? Fertilizer. Thank you very much. I knew it began with F, but so many other words do.
Excuse me, Councillor Watt, please.
Yeah, thank you. Last week, I was at an Invest Vancouver, Invest Van Hong Kong Innovation Summit, and it was really fascinating. They got into our growing needs for vertical farming. And one thing about farming that I suppose I knew, but I hadn't really thought about it recently, as most of the produce that hits our tables, certainly during the off season, is designed for transport and is lower in nutrients. But with the vertical farming capabilities, these units can be put in a corner of a warehouse, a corner of a grocery store, or they can also, and they're quite nimble, be put into empty retail space. Think large department stores that could be sitting empty. So I'm doing a little more investigating on that to see what could potentially be done or proposed to anybody in our municipality who might be interested in going down that road, providing fresh local produce while using their space before a redevelopment.
Thanks very much, Councillor Watt. I would just like to share with you this past weekend on Saturday night was the 80th anniversary of our West Van Theater, Little Theater. And Councillor Lambert and Rebecca joined Kathy and I for a truly wonderful evening, pretty much full house. It was a full house, and 80 years people have been performing and bringing joy and entertainment to our community. It was really wonderful. And then yesterday, this was particularly wonderful. I wonder if we have a photo. Our piazza, as I like to call it, that what used to be vacant space in the hallway was converted into a concert hall. And there were wonderful, it was organized as the first International Piano Day in West Vancouver. Do we have a photo? I've got to tell you, it was truly wonderful. It was, no, all of these incredibly talented young people filled the hall. And if the camera was pointed the other way, you would have seen the few hundred people that were here to cheer them on. A lot of course, very, very proud parents. And you can see our deputy chief of police joined me, and we handed out awards to all of the young people. And it was really nice to see this building alive on the weekend. So that's it. And could I have a motion to receive the reports, Councillor Snyder? And seconded by Councillor Cassidy. Seconded. Any discussion? Question? All in favor? Contrary? Carried. Any public questions or comments this evening? Mr. Cave.
At this point, the most important thing we're facing is 4 days ago, the province contacted the First Nations, gave them a letter on DRIPA that none of the rest of us have seen, and including a number of the First Nations have not seen. And how are we going to respond to the fact that because of DRIPA, we have people not building new properties, not buying properties throughout the province? We are in a state of economic collapse, and nobody has spoken up about this situation. And in fact, if you have a house for sale, you're meeting a lot of buyers right now who are saying, well, I can't buy anything in British Columbia. I don't know what my private rights are. What do I hold? And how is this going to change? Because Premier Eby and his group have not come forth to say, we are going to scrap this, the 10 or 12% behind the Conservatives. The Conservatives are saying we are going to scrap DRIPA completely. Where do we stand as a council on the current situation?
Thank you, Mr. Cave. I'm sorry, was that a question at the end of the comment?
Yeah, the question is, what are you as a group doing to discuss this with the Premier about the private rights that are now in the hands of the courts and should be in the hands of the politicians?
Thank you, Mr. Cave. I can assure you that virtually all of us mayors at Metro Vancouver are discussing this at that level. It is certainly a concern, and I think people understand that if we're going to provide services as we do, water, sewer, a fundamental part of providing that service is security of title. And it's an issue that we are discussing. Thank you. Thank you. No further questions or comments. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes, it's
Councillor Cassidy.
recommended that the March 30th, 2026 regular council meeting be adjourned.
Thank you, Councillor Watt. And for everyone, happy Easter, as we don't have another meeting until after Easter. Okay.
We didn't know.